Hey, how's everyone doing? Oop, I think I fear I'm way too loud. Okay. Yeah, hey everyone, how are we all doing? How we all feeling? What are the vibes around these here parts? Um, okay. You don't want this one, although I'll be honest, I wish I took note. Um, have I debated vor? Yeah, I've debated vor before, but typically the conversations, I don't know, it's not like the sort of thing that interests me. I think vor is more of like a Dr. Blitz villain. Like, also kinda just intuitively, right? Alright, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. I hope everyone's having a good day. If you're not having a good day, I hope you, I don't know, I hope you reflect on your ways and maybe, change, grow as a person. Um, I'm kidding. Not to imply that all bad days are your fault or something. Um, okay, why do I have so many tabs open? Okay, actually, I think it's probably an appropriate number of tabs. Hey, thanks. Yeah, I did go on the line. Have I seen Synth versus Flow? It's just about my favorite debate on the internet. It's so crazy that you were saying that because I was literally watching like Synth versus Flow yesterday. I think that the Synth versus Flow debate is very funny. What's the best source for learning general philosophy? Like, okay, like a beginner level or at like a topic specific level? Because if you're asking at a beginner level, of course, the best way is to read Michael Humer's Knowledge, Reality, and Value, a mostly common sense guide to philosophy, which we're doing a reading group. We're doing a book club. Sorry, I had to cancel a book club last week. It's because I'm evil. Uh, but um, We're doing a reading group. It's this upcoming Saturday. We're reading, what is it? Chapter 16? Chapter 16. Which is the what is it? The obligation of charity. I think that's what it's named. Um, but yeah, it's pretty good. Um, oh, but if you want like a general resource for philosophy topics, you should definitely check out the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It's plato.stanford.edu. They have like a vast array of topics, like basically any philosophical topic that you can think of, and then even like a lot of topics that you won't even think are philosophical in nature. They'll have entire entries on those. Best book on philosophy of time? That's a good question. There was recently a book that I started reading a bit of. I think it's the I just wanna make sure this is the right book. Yeah, okay, The Rutledge Companion to Philosophy of Time, everything that I've read from there, it covers, like, a wide range of topics, and it gives you, like, lots of resources. I'm still kind of in, like, the scouting phase of my philosophy of time reading. I have, like, some views on some things. It seems like general relativity kind of kills, like, all forms of A theory, but, you know, I'm still reading. Okay, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older and make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists as we go on to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going? What's up? Doing well, yeah. What do you got this time? Mhm, mhm. Sure. Yep. Um, I think probably so if I were to respond to the sort of argument that I would give, I think what you're going to have to end up doing is oh wait, sorry. Apparently there's no audio. How could I do this? No, well on YouTube, yeah. One sec, let me okay. Uh all right. Sorry to throw this curveball at you, Molly, but wait, can you say more words, Brandon?
I can say more words. There are plenty of words more to say. Shall I
Mhm.
keep saying more of those words that there are plenty of, or shall I stop? You let me know and
We'll
interrupt.
see, we'll see. Molly, is it can you hear him?
Okay.
We're perfect now. Good to go. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Oh wait. Oh sure. Okay, okay. Perfect. Um yeah. Sorry. Okay, wait, let's start over. So you wanted to talk about
All good, yeah.
yeah, in terms of the your question is basically in terms of like the change in time argument, what is there like any response that's even like remotely satisfactory? I think probably what the theist has to do is commit themselves to the B theory of time, but then that makes a lot of the doctrinal commitments like deeply problematic. You need to,
And
for example,
remind me, B theory of time.
you just told that past, present, and future are all actual, that the entire timeline is just
Yes,
all
got you.
actual, it's always actual. There is no actual like coming into existence. There's just different slices in the timeline, and the coming
And
into
our
existence of
sequential
certain
experience
moments.
of it
Hmm?
is like an illusion.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
got you.
Um, I think that the theist can certainly do this, although I do think that this leads to the rejection of like certain doctrinal commitments that they probably don't want to reject. Things like the pre-creation moment. You can't hold that there's some moment where it's God existing alone, and then God in his like before creation state then creates. Instead, you just have like creation eternally existing, like the entire timeline eternally
Yeah, whatever that
exists.
even means in relation to time in the B theory. Yeah, like it kind of, there isn't really a linguistic model to capture like an exterior perspective on that, then, is there?
I mean, there are like people who do like work to try to explain like how these phenomena that we have in our everyday life arise, or like, work to try to reduce certain statements into tenseless statements, like tensed statements
Mm.
into tenseless statements. Although my understanding is that that project has probably failed, and that there are going to be like some irreducibly tensed statements, but then you just have to square that away with like the B theory of or like the eternalism somehow.
Yeah. I like, do you think that there is uh, any chance that like there are layers of time? So like there's like a sense of time that is like a meta time, so that in terms of dimensional space, our timeline might exist like an actual line in a dimension that is perceivable from a godlike being looking onto it, and that there may be, in some sense, another higher dimension that is experienced analogically, like time, from that perspective, but on a higher dimension. Like, what do you make of that?
Um, okay, I'm a bit skeptical of analogical predication in the first place, but we can probably set that aside. I think that probably
Sure.
just kicks the can down the road about okay, this like meta time. Um, is this did God create this one? And then I think like the problem probably just reapplies with the meta time. You know, who's responsible for meta time? Did God create it? If God created it, was he always creating it?
Is
Did he
it another
begin to create
Euthyphro
it?
dilemma? Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's like you run into like basically the same problem. But I mean, you could certainly just hold to some sort of B theory view for that too. Another critique that I hear of this sort of view is that you lose out on the ability to draw a distinction between because you want to say that Jesus is eternally begotten, but not eternally like created, and you kind of lose out on the ability to do that if you hold to B theory where the universe just always exists. It kind of seems like Jesus is like being eternally begotten, kind of as the same status as the creation itself. Like they all just always
Sure. There's a
exist.
distinction that falls apart a little bit there. Yes.
Yeah.
I can see ways that I don't hold to that theory, but I can see ways that people might go to just talk about the unique type of, I'm using heretical language, but creation that begetting would be, because to beget is to make of and like oneself, whereas creation might be distinguished that way. But I'm not sure that would hold either.
Sure. So then the distinction you would draw is to say that it's like Jesus is begotten in the sense that, even though he would be, I don't know. Yeah,
There's
right. Because isn't
more
it, I don't know enough about
analogousness.
church history, but it is heretical to say that Jesus was created, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I think that that's what the critique is supposed to be, is that it's not clear in what sense Jesus isn't created under the B theory of time when creation just eternally exists. It's not clear what the difference is between Jesus and creation.
Yeah, there are views of the Trinity that are like monarchistic, like a monarchy model,
Yeah.
that talk about the Trinity having a single source, and that source is the Father, but is an eternal source. And so the Son and Father distinction are a co-mutual relationship. The Son can't be a son if he doesn't have a father, and the Father can't be a father if he doesn't have a son. And so there's like they both mutually rely on each other, but the Father is a source in some sense. But I think we just end up in linguistic mires when we try to delve too deep there. Yeah, I don't think anybody really knows what they're saying. They're dealing with ineffable concepts.
Yeah, sure. I also think that there's a lot of like rough implications of B theory, especially for a lot of the arguments that theists want to make. You kind of lose out on access to any cosmological argument under the B theory of time because just trivially there are actual infinities. The future is an actual infinity under the B theory of time. I mean, even under like an argument from motion, like change is no longer the actualization of a potential because there are temporal changes, but there aren't potential times. So that means that change can't be the actualization of a potential. I don't know. I think that those are some critiques that I like.
Yeah, okay. You were saying that you're like developing your convictions on the nature of time right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, obviously these arguments are against theories of time that are presented with God as a component in the model of the universe? Do you think that your understanding of time and how God fits in it is like an actual defeater for the possibility of you believing in God? To put it more positively.
Probably not.
Okay. Yeah, I suspected it wasn't.
Yeah. I think probably what it is like a pretty robust defeater to a good number of models for God, and also a good number of arguments that people give in support of God. But I mean, if somebody asks me for a reason to think that God doesn't exist, usually I just give that because it applies to most models.
Yeah, I got the sense in listening to you talk about it that it's a powerful rhetorical device because it does stump most people who are theists, because there isn't a way to express God's relationship to time that feels logically exhaustive and coherent. But I struggle to imagine that if I solved that problem for you right now, you'd be like, oh, okay, so God does exist, right?
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I still have. At this point, I've read so much that I have like lots of reasons to think that God doesn't exist. I think like the other thing that this runs into is just you end up with like big parsimony issues that if the universe just eternally exists, then it's not clear why I couldn't just have the universe, and the source for the universe is something that doesn't have a mind.
Yeah. Like you don't gain much in either direction then. Yeah, I hear you.
Yep. Okay. But yeah, is there something specifically you wanted to talk about?
That was it really. I'm prompted by the last thing we just said. Is there an argument that you've experienced that you think is the biggest defeater for you, Ian's belief in God? Like, that isn't just like an argument you'd run, but is actually an obstacle for you to believe in God personally?
Sure. I mean, okay, if you want, I think Graham Oppy's argument is when I'm looking at the data in front of me, the data in support of theism, the data against theism, Well, okay, when you say God, are you talking about like the triomni God or just like the minimal like mind that created the universe?
Let's go mind that created the universe, like a
Yeah,
mere god.
yeah, sure. So I think Oppie's argument is probably pretty successful in terms of evidential analysis. That it's just going to be more parsimonious. That it seems like all of the arguments in favor of God's existence fails, and then at that point it just becomes a question of which theory is more parsimonious. And I end up
Hmm.
believing that there's probably some things which are evidence for God, probably some things which are evidence against God, and then naturalism is just more parsimonious than supernaturalism, which means that we should prefer naturalism over supernaturalism. And because theism is just a subset of supernaturalism, that means we should prefer naturalism over theism.
Yeah, okay. I follow, and I appreciate that. That's like not we're not talking about degrees of certainty. Do you think that there's in like a Bayesian model, how would you quantify your priors when approaching the evidence? Like, do you
Um,
have a sense of what your priors are going into that evidential calculation?
uh, I don't know enough about Bayesianism to answer this question, I think.
Okay, sure.
I mean, obviously, I don't think any of the evidence for like supernatural things existing are particularly compelling. I think that there's, weirdly enough, I do think that there seems to be something strange about like certain Catholic miracles. Like, for example, I know Our Lady of Fatima is getting a lot of attention right now. Um,
I've heard about this. I've not done a ton of research on it.
I haven't done a ton of research either, but it certainly seems like there are, if it was as flimsy as a lot of the other miracles would be, it certainly seems like like Ethan Muse wouldn't be absolutely railing as many people as he is in like debate after debate on this topic. Um, so I don't know. It seems like I need to look into it more deeply, but it seems like there might be something there, like something odd going on there. But then that's really
Hmm.
perplexing because, and I know this is going to be
So
controversial with you,
Catholic.
but I think Catholic metaphysics are like almost certainly false.
Yeah, I'm not a Catholic,
Uh,
so I
That's
would
weird that you hold to
probably agree with some of
simplicity
that.
then.
Well, I don't disagree with everything every Catholic has ever
Hmm.
said. Yeah.
It's,
Um,
I guess it's hard for me to imagine somebody holding to simplicity unless it was like a doctrinal commitment. It just seems like the sort of thing that you don't like
well,
stumble
I don't.
into,
I don't
or not,
hold to
sorry,
it.
not stumble into, but don't like argue yourself into.
Sure, that's interesting. I don't hold to it as dogmatically as a Catholic does because I'm not in submission to what I believe to be an infallible authority that makes me. Um, my Christianity wouldn't fall apart if my belief in the simplicity of God fell apart. That's for
Sure,
sure.
sure. But
Um,
that's okay. It's there's this strange thing. I don't know enough about church history, but my friend Justin, who knows like way more about it than I do, tells me that the true church is probably Catholicism. And also, you know, it seems like a lot of like the miracle claims that have any level of support to them seem to be Catholic miracles. And then when I look at things like, you know, the good moral fruits of individuals, it seems like a lot of the people with good moral fruits end up being like Catholic. It just seems like a lot points to Catholicism, but then they have like the craziest metaphysics I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's like, I'm just baffled by the evidence because
mm,
it seems like if Christianity is true, a lot of the evidence would favor Catholicism being the true denomination of Christianity. But then I have like good a priori reasons to think that Catholicism is definitely false. So I
yeah,
don't
that's
know.
a rock and a
It's
hard
hard to know
place for
what to
sure.
make of it.
Yeah, I hear you. I've never been more positively inclined towards Catholicism than I am right now. I grew up in Northern Ireland as a Protestant, and I don't know if you know any of the history there, but that's a controversy there. Um, but
I'm not
the reason
familiar
I'm
enough.
that's okay. There's been a lot of political and religious violence over the years there between Protestants and Catholics.
I see.
Um, I went to an integrated primary school which had Protestant and Catholic kids in it at the same time, which was like a big deal. Um, but yeah, I find myself not able to subscribe to Catholicism mostly because of the papacy I just don't think it's biblical, and I can't find myself subscribing to something that I must say, I will follow this no matter what you say,
Yeah.
instead of having to evaluate what they are saying and decide whether I'm going to follow it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And my views on this are like, I don't know, they definitely need to be taken with a grain of salt. This argument is like way underdeveloped. But some of my friends tell me that there's like certain dogmatic decrees in Catholicism that are just directly contradictory. And
There are, yeah.
I'm just like baffled by that. Like I don't even know what to begin to make of that.
Yeah, having an apparently infallible office, or at least an office that can speak infallibly, that has also contradicted itself within the same office. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's a done deal. As far as I'm concerned, that's a done deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's like one of the strange things. I guess like that's like an argument against Christianity that I'm still working on. But I don't know. I think there's probably something there. At least that's
Yeah.
like my current reason why I'm like disinclined by a lot of like the miracle arguments, like the Our Lady of Fatima or any of that. Is that if that stuff was true,
They
then
don't solve the
Catholicism
other
would be true.
problems.
And then you
Yeah.
know, at that point, you just have to, I don't know, come to terms with crazy shit like you know, hell is eternal conscious torment, or I think divine simplicity is pretty nonsense. But I
The
also think
divine
the
simplicity
modal
being
collapse.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, okay. There's are you familiar with the modal collapse argument? I don't know if I ran it on you before, but it's an argument against divine simplicity.
I think I am. I don't think I could say it to you, but
Sure.
run it super quick.
Yeah, it's just that God's so if you're saying God is free will, then what that commits you to saying is that you know, God's act of willing has like some contingency to it. That
Yeah, it could be otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. But then under divine simplicity, because God's act of willing is identical to his existence, that means that God's existence is contingent, which the theist is disinclined from saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I see how that runs out. I think I don't ascribe to a strict understanding of like of metaphysical time that would apply to God. Like, because we're talking about God having free will, obviously we're talking in some sense there's an implication of action, but if we're defining God in simplicity as pure act, like, yeah, I just accept there's like a poetry rather than a forensic statement going on there. I'm not expecting that God is pure act. I struggle to conceive of that in a consistent manner, which I think you, to some degree, accurately critique as like an act in terms of physical atoms in motion affecting other physical atoms. Like, I don't think that's what the theory is trying to say. I don't think it has language that will have any other connotations, but I think we're talking about an ineffable, like, ultimately theory of God that I could take or leave ultimately, but presents itself as compelling to me.
I'm not really sure how that responds to the contention.
The contention being that
Sure. So okay.
the potential collapses because
No. It's not even that
it couldn't be
potential
otherwise.
collapses. It's just that there's contingency in God's will. God's will is identical to his existence. Therefore, God's existence is contingent.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I follow. God's existence is contingent if his will is contingent. Yeah, so that seems completely logically coherent to me. I guess it feels like a. Do you think that argument that you just presented, which I think is completely valid, actually convinces you or increases your likelihood to reject the idea of God. And if it was satisfied, it would increase your chances of believing in God.
I think it pretty robustly. Well, I think it's like a pretty robust argument against doctrines that Catholicism is committed to. This is like one of the
Yeah.
what I feel
Yeah.
like knockdown arguments against Catholicism is that they are, as a matter of dogma, committed to the view that God could have created otherwise, that he could have not created, that he could have that his will could have been different, that there's like a contingency there. They're committed to a very strong doctrine of divine simplicity, and they're committed, or well, and then from those things, it's just going to follow that God's existence is contingent, and of course, they're committed to the view that God's existence is necessary. So it just seems like there's this almost
There's a logical contradiction there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that, and I think that's fair. I think it's fair of a dogmatic commitment to the doctrine of the simplicity of God. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
guess
I think
I
if
was
I were to
asked-
become Christian, I would definitely have to become some sort of Protestant to get out of things like divine simplicity.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, have you ever had a Christian mystic come up and just like argue for like the ineffable nature of God and tell you things like you're trying to categorize things that are beyond human categories? Like, what do you respond to that kind of rhetoric?
That stuff feels like it drifts like way too close into, I don't know, it almost feels like these people are like Christian atheists. Like at that point, it feels like they don't even have like like if you can know nothing about God, then it doesn't even seem like you can know. I mean, it's not even clear what you're believing in at that point.
Yeah, sure. Like, what do you make of the approach that like we can only talk about God apophatically?
Is that like analogically?
And analogically. So analogically is slightly different. Apophatically is like negatively. We can only make exhaustive negative statements about God. Any positive statement is by its nature going to be inexhaustive because it's talking about an infinite concept.
I think it depends the sort of negative statements. I think that there's like some things where it's fine that you can define them negatively, like that actually is informative. And sure, I mean, it probably is informative to speak negatively about God, but I mean, depending on how many things there are to say about God, I think that there's like a real question there about like whether or not you're actually getting a clearer picture given more things that it's not. You know, for example, are you familiar with like the paradox of the raven?
Paradox of the Raven, what's that?
It's like an evidential paradox. So, let's say that you're trying to gather evidence for the conclusion that all ravens are black, that if something is a raven, then that thing is black. Well, the reverse of this is that if something is not black, then that thing is not a raven. So you can you can paradoxically gather evidence for the conclusion that all ravens are black by identifying things that are not black that are not ravens. And I don't know, that's certainly strange. It doesn't feel like you're genuinely gathering evidence there.
Oh, interesting. So I think that you probably are genuinely gathering evidence, but it is diluted by the quantity of things that are not black.
Yep.
And so it is evidence, but it is such a minuscule amount of evidence per thing that is not black that until you have unspeakable numbers of those data points, it's negligible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think so. Okay, I wonder. I haven't done too much reading onto this topic either, but I wonder if you might run into like a same thing, based on like only being able to talk about God in terms of, like the things that he's not. That I wonder if there's like just so many things to say there that you're not making like genuine progress.
Yeah, it would certainly it would certainly be a very small amount of progress as compared to positive statements. Yeah. But then the apophatic approach is normally paired with analogical statements, but it limits those analogical statements to ones that can be found in what would be believed to be divine revelation. God is allowed to make condescending analogical statements about himself that aren't exhaustive, but are true in so much as a human mind can grasp them.
Oh, sure. So in terms of like analogical predication. So
what are you asking? Sorry.
Oh wait, are you saying that's true of like analogical predication? Like we can only speak of God in terms of analogies?
So yeah, that's often paired with apophatic approaches, the negative approach. So both are true. Yeah.
You might be a good person
classical
to help
theism.
me understand analogical predication. Oh wait, one sec.
You're good.
Let me turn my stuff on Do Not Disturb. Okay. So if there's an analogy, then there's like some sort of thing in common between God and, or I don't know, yeah, between like God and like the analogized thing. But then
Yeah.
it seems like you like what it is in common, like the sort of like the type of thing in common seems to be like it doesn't even seem like you can do analogies because you might want to say that God has like a characteristic that's analogous, but I mean the simple God can't have characteristics or aspects or properties. So at that point, I don't know, you like shrug your shoulders and then say it's an analogy to something about God to but you know, I don't know. It's not super clear what the analogy is even of.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that the way I conceive of it, within like a divine simplistic model. So in that view, something like God's mercy and God's justice are the same thing, right? That's the
Sure.
simple God. And the way that we perceive them is different. I, as an analogy, ironically enough, think of as being like oriented differently towards the same thing. Like if you've got a sword and you orient it correctly, it just fits perfectly with its sheath. But if you orient the sheath differently, the sword could destroy the sheath. The sword has not changed. It is the sheath in its orientation towards the sword that has changed. And that if we are experiencing God from a lower dimension, then our capacity to experience God is limited to such an extent that though when we experience God, we are experiencing the purity, fullness, one thing that God is, our capacity to accept or experience it makes it appear as something different.
Yeah, no, like I understand what it's trying to do, but then even there, I don't know. I'm not maybe it was just like a bad example, but I think, for example, mercy is probably incompatible with justice, that there are certain demands of mercy that are just directly at odds. In fact, I might even say that all mercy, like all true mercy is incompatible with justice because, you know, justice, the goal is desserts, you know, what do people deserve? And then mercy is to excuse people of specific punishments.
Yeah, I guess that takes us into I think a completely different debate
Yeah,
about
I know.
how
So it
we
might just feel like a bad
define
example.
moral values in the right way. Yeah, because obviously, from my perspective, my understanding of mercy and or justice might be deficient in some way, and the tension you are putting forward may only be a result of my deficient understanding of justice and or mercy, and must be, in fact, if God is actually perfectly just and perfectly merciful, and those things are the same thing. So I don't think what you put forward demonstrates a problem for my view necessarily.
I feel like that commits you to like a pretty deep skepticism about things like justice and mercy that at that point we're just like fundamentally mistaken about what justice is. That at that point
can
justice
be.
just can't be what people like giving people what they deserve.
So interesting that in our first ever conversation, this is where we got to, and then kind of we brought things to an end. You were pointing out your how you think that the level of skepticism I am bringing to values and morals is probably too much to be workable.
Yeah, well, it just seems
Like,
to. I just think that we have evidence. We have like lots of good evidence to think that. Okay, so frame it like this: we have lots of good evidence for the hypothesis that justice concerns itself solely with what people deserve. But if what you're saying is correct, then this hypothesis is wrong. So these two competing hypotheses are at odds with each other. One of them being wrong implies the negation of the other one. So from there, all of the evidence in support of justice being concerned with desserts is evidence against like the notion that we're mistaken about it.
I hear you. So you're talking about these concepts within morality being something like me saying the number 1 and the number 3 are the same number. Like something about the definition of number falls apart if that's true. Is that?
Yeah, like pretty trivially, right? Because mercy, okay, either one of two things is true. Either justice is not concerned about desserts, or alternatively, mercy is never about letting people off the hook for a punishment that they deserve.
Yeah, sure.
Both of
Because
them
if we
seem to have
define just, yeah.
both of them seem unlikely. It just definitely
Yeah.
seems
And
like
you think
justice
that,
is, yeah, go for it.
and you think that the idea of divine simplicity means that one of those has to be true.
Yes.
Because if we define justice as someone getting their desserts
Mhm.
and mercy as someone being given unwarranted favor despite their desserts,
Yeah.
those are not compatible. Yeah, sure.
Well, listen, I hate to cut the conversation off so early, but I don't know, people are asking me to. But hey, you should come by some other
All good,
time.
man.
Yep.
A pleasure, absolutely. Thanks,
Yep.
man.
Have a good day. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you are 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. Whoa, is that Ryan Beard? Hey, what's up? How's it going, Ryan?
Wow, you finally stopped dodging me.
I know. I've been running. I've been sprinting away from you.
How's it going?
Yeah, going well. How about you? What do you want to talk about?
I was curious about, and tell me if you don't want to get into this, but I was curious about something you were talking about the other day. I heard that you were sort of talking about this idea of virtue ethics,
Yeah.
which I found interesting.
I would love to get into virtue ethics. Yeah. What do you want to know about it?
Sure. Well, I guess it was interesting that you were sort of saying that you think that virtue ethics is like a type of objective morality, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, I guess just curious to flesh out your thoughts on that and maybe give objections that I was thinking of and see where we land on it.
Yep. Sure. So I think that there's probably something important to say. So something can be objective, but then we just don't know with absolute certainty what the actual right answer is. I think chess provides a good analogy for this, that you might, okay, depending on how good of a chess player you are, you're going to have some sort of intuition or thought process that leads you to good, great, or potentially even the best possible move that you could make. But there's lots of different factors that go into it. Depending on the position of the knights and the rook and your king, different moves are going to be favored. And I think the same thing is true of ethics, that there's lots of things that you should be valuing, and you should be valuing them to specific degrees, and they all give you different reasons to do different actions. And what ethics is, what I think the most plausible views of ethics are going to be the ones wherein you, I don't know, you have like lots of reasons to do lots of different things, and then you assess the reasons and then come up with the best action on the basis of taking all the reasons into account, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. I would say like once you accept like a certain ethical framework, it makes sense that then once you accept that framework, then you would go off of like evidence to see what fits most in line with that framework. I guess the question is just like how do you get to that first bridge of like the is ought
Yeah.
gap?
Yep, sure. So I'm trying to think about how far I want to back up in the explanation. Okay, I think probably a good starting place is here. Um, in my view, all oughts are going to derive from goals that you have, that all of the reasons that you have for actions depend on the sort of things that you're aiming at. You know, if it lies nowhere in the goals that you're aiming at to go and win like a skateboarding competition, then I think it makes no sense to say that you have a reason to go and win the skateboarding competition. It needs to, in some way, connect back to your goals, your ends, if you will. Um, I think that when you have a reason to take a specific action, then that action needs to be a means to achieve a specific end where you hold that end. So the one of the core pillars of like the virtue ethics argument is going to be that everybody has this overarching end that all of their other ends are going to lead back to. So, you know, let's say I'm walking to the gym. That's a means that I'm taking to achieve the end of like going to the gym. But going to the gym itself isn't the final end. It's, you know, but another means to achieve an even higher up end of being healthy, or I don't know, being hot or living long or something of that sort. And then, you know, maybe being hot is like a means to the end of like forming like a good, meaningful relationship or being taken seriously in different places. I don't know, some gibberish like that. It doesn't need to be true for you to hold it as your end.
Yeah.
So and it's going to keep on going back, and you're trying to be successful in these various domains, and the domains expand out wider and wider and wider. And my argument is because the domain, like we started with, I don't know, like walking to the gym, and then we ended up at like, you know, being successful in your relationship and your health and your like living long. That the categories of end get like broader and broader and broader. So my argument is that the ultimate end that it's going to come back to is just the entirety of your life. That the ultimate end, the thing that all of your goals are in service of, all of your rational goals are in service of, ultimately come back to being successful in the life that you live. Do you agree with that? Do you think that that makes any sense?
Um, I think so.
Mhm.
I think that, well, I mean, I think I would probably agree with that, but I would say that what it means to have a successful life is still feels very subjective.
I agree with that. Yeah. But luckily, I'm not claiming that the objective part is the end. I'm claiming that the objective part is the means. That virtue is the means to living this successful life. And there's like a variety of like self-defeat arguments that I'd put forward for all of the virtues. So, you know, I understand courage minimally to be something like the disposition to evaluate risk properly and feel like the relevant emotions. You know, you feel an appropriate amount of fear that corresponds to the level of risk involved with the actions that you're taking. You've properly acknowledged what's at stake, and you know. So that's going to be necessary to live a life successfully, because then otherwise you're simply not even acting in line with your own values, you know, even if, so I think that there's going to be like certain values that you're necessarily committed to having. Courage, like a disposition towards courage, is one of them, and the reason why it's necessary is because otherwise you're literally just acting wrongly. You're acting in irrational ways. You're not properly assessing things like risk. So
Okay, so when you say courage you're saying is the way you would define courage under this virtue ethics would be properly assessing risk and then acting like accordingly.
yeah, yeah, you properly assess risk, you feel the relevant emotions in response to this risk, and then you act accordingly.
What would you say if there's someone who's like, they really love being a motorbike racer,
Yeah.
even though it's like a really dangerous thing to do.
Mhm.
And it actually probably, if they were trying to maximize the amount of life that they're living, they probably shouldn't be doing this, but it's something that they really enjoy. And so they're sort of like choosing to take this unnecessary risk because it's what brings them fulfillment, even though it might not be like the most, pragmatic thing to be doing.
I think I would need okay. I think I would probably argue that you need to have like that's gonna probably come down to the specifics of just how risky motorbiking is. If it's like a little bit risky and it could go disastrous, then that's probably permissible. But the person who's like doing the motorbiking, like the rational thing for them to do is feel an appropriate amount of fear. Like they recognize the risks that are involved, they acknowledge it, they assess that this risk is not too great, and then they're gonna go for it. But on the other hand, I mean, if 30% of motorbikers die from motorbiking accidents, then the courageous thing to do there is feel the appropriate amount of fear, and then the proper response to that is to just not do it. So that depends on
So
like
you would say that you could consider it immoral to be
yeah, you're failing like
doing
a
that in that
yeah.
instance.
You're feeling like a serious moral obligation to yourself, and that's kind of the argument about like what even though there's going to be subjectivity that goes into the good life, there's questions as to which life is like the good life, or it's going to be personal. The ones that my ethical system exclude are the ones that are in violation of virtues because I argue that they're irrational.
So yeah, I guess I just I'm still struggling to understand how that's objective if different people have different perspectives on how much risk they want to take. Someone could be way more of a risk taker, someone could be way less of a risk taker. I definitely do agree that there would be some threshold that you could cross where you're just being like so risky that, you know, I would probably say that that does cross the threshold into being immoral, but that is probably still just under my own subjective analysis that I'm doing.
Yep. So in terms of like risk assessment, what's going on here is that there are different things that you value. That's kind of at the heart of risk, is that there's like two things that you value. There's the thing that you value from taking the risky action, and then like the thing that you're risking. You have both of them. So depending on the things that you value, like how much value you assign to each of them, there is going to be an objectively rational amount of risk that you should accept or not accept. If the things that you're risking, let's say you value your life like a lot, like you want to keep on living, but then you also put some value, although way less value, to things like an adrenaline rush. And you want to go compete in your very first like Russian roulette tournament. Well, I mean, that's an irrational action because even under your own value structure, this like a silly action to do. You're simply not valuing things properly. Or, I mean, if you are valuing things properly, you're simply not actually responding to those values in a proper way.
So could you maybe argue that like the core values that you decide, that would be subjective, but then actually living in accordance with those values would be something that's more objective because it is based on if you're following the rational path to achieve your goals from the get-go?
That's a great question. So I think that would follow if the things that you value, if you have no reason, like objective reason, to hold specific things as being valuable. I think that there's like some level of subjectivity in as to the things that we value. That's obviously true. But I think that there are some things that it is irrational to not value. So I'll give you an example of that. I think that everybody is kind of rationally forced to value um, the ability to value things in the first place. And the argument for that would probably be something like this: when I value something, I deem it to be valuable just in virtue of me pursuing it. So in that sense, the value of the thing that I'm pursuing, let's say it's like motorbike racing, the value of motorbike racing derives from me. But in order for me to be able to confer value onto something, that means that I would need to be valuable. So, in virtue of valuing anything, I would need to value my ability to value things. But because there's fundamentally nothing different between my ability to value things and everybody else's ability to value things, that means everybody must likewise value these things. So, everybody must value um, others' ability to value in the first place, if that makes any sense.
You like must have some sort of value.
Yep. You
So
must
you'd say
assign
if,
some sort of value to the necessary conditions to being able to value, is the argument.
so if someone was kind of just going through life acting like just totally randomly, you would say that person would be acting like immorally, I guess.
They'd be acting irrationally, and yeah, they'd be acting immorally insofar as they're, they're not living a good life.
I guess I'm just still struggling to see how you like just specifically to the question of how you bridge the like is ought gap. Like, how would you answer that?
Yep. So you bridge the is-ought gap because all oughts derive from the goals that you have, and everybody has the goal of living a good life. The good life requires virtue. Therefore, everybody ought to be virtuous.
Does everyone have a goal of living a good life necessarily?
Yep, I argue yes. Okay, good life could probably be better understood as like successful life. Everybody has like some sort of like trajectory that they're trying to be successful at across the course of their life. And that's what I mean by the good life. It's just that they're trying to be successful in their various pursuits that span the course of their entire life.
Do you think that's like a logical necessity? Because I could imagine there being someone who just has lost all drive and just doesn't like really care about anything.
So if somebody is like incapable of like holding specific goals, well, probably at that point, I would say that they're not even a moral agent. Like if you literally lack the ability to have any goal at all, that first of all means that all of your actions are going to be irrational because they're not directed towards any goal. But I mean, second of all, I think like babies fall under this category wherein we have like reasons to value them because they probably have like proto valuing, but they don't have like the or no, actually no, I think it's a bad example because babies definitely do value things, but they don't have like they're even if they're not able to like articulate it, they still value things. But hmm, I guess I'd say that in order
They
for
at
the
least
type of
value like
person the
food or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. In order for the
Yeah.
type of person that you're describing to exist, I think they would have to just completely lack, uh, you'd basically be committed to saying that they can't take any rational actions because all of their actions are unintentional.
Hmm. Yeah. So you're saying that what was the next question I was going to ask?
Yeah, luckily I said a bunch of words to confuse you.
Well, it's like there's always like 5 paths you can go down.
It's always going. It's all going according to plan.
So if someone just subjectively decides that the thing that they value is something that you would uh, consider like not virtuous,
Mhm.
I guess like how I don't understand how you can like if they're like you said, like everyone gets to sort of choose their own core things that they like their own personal definition of what they consider to be a successful life.
Yep.
But what if someone's own personal definition of having a successful life is just being an asshole who fucks over everyone else to try to like come out on top?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's where the virtue of justice comes in. So I define justice pretty minimally. I just say that justice is you treat like cases alike. When cases have the same features, you give them the same sort of treatment. The reason why everybody ought to be just in order to live a good life is because a good life that you select for yourself is going to be one that you're capable of rationally approving of. And I make the argument that if you don't have justice, then you can't irrationally approve of your own life because if you don't treat like cases alike, you can't evaluate how good of a life you're living because, in order to do that, you'd need to be able to compare it to other lives. You'd need to be able to say, well, my life is going really well and I'm able to make this assessment on the basis that I'm like a good evaluator of lives. If you're not a good evaluator of lives, then any evaluation you make about your own life is unjustified. So you wouldn't be able to rationally evaluate your own life. Sorry, that was like kind of rambly. So the chain of logic is like this. Um, justice is treating like cases alike. If you are a good evaluator of lives, then you're able to treat like cases alike. You're able to evaluate like cases and then act accordingly. And then if you're doing that, then you're just doing justice, which is necessary for the good life. I feel like even that was like super rambly. I don't know if that made any sense at all.
No, I think I get what you're getting at, but I feel like there's some. It feels to me like there's kind of some question begging happening, because like if someone values, like if their core value is just that they want to, basically they're just sort of an egoist that just wants to succeed at all costs, I feel like it could be rational to not treat like cases alike, because you could be like, okay, if I treat everyone equally, then I'm not going to be able to dominate people and come out on top.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So the argument that I would make against these people is that they can't even evaluate their own lives in any sort of justified way because they're not disposed towards being a proper evaluator of lives. Well, either they're capable of evaluating what people deserve on the basis of their characteristics, or I guess that probably covers it. Like they're either not capable of evaluating what people deserve on the basis of their characteristics, in which case they can't evaluate what they deserve on the basis of their characteristics and they can't live a good life, or they are capable of evaluating that, but they just don't act on that, in which case they're not living a good life because they're not even acting on their own rational evaluations. So,
but it feels like you're still what's the word, it feels like you're still baking in your definition of a good life, because like I said, if this person's definition of a good life is just coming out on top and trying to succeed as much as possible, then they would be fulfilling the goal of living a good life by not treating like cases alike. Yeah, presupposing,
yeah, sure. I guess I hear you. Like I hear the critique. Maybe could you tell me? Do you want me to like go through the response again? I'm not sure.
It feels like you're presupposing the conclusion that the good life is to treat like cases alike. But I'm trying to say that if someone's starting point is that what they consider to be the good life is to succeed by, just doing whatever maximally benefits them, then they could actually, it could be rational for them to not treat like cases alike.
Sure. Okay. I think I'll give you a syllogism. And by the way, this isn't my syllogism. This comes from a philosopher named Paul Bloomfield. So you can tell me which of these you think you would disagree with. So the first premise is that fair self-evaluation is necessary for self-knowledge. The second premise is that self-knowledge is necessary for self-respect. And the third premise is that self-respect is necessary for a good life.
Can you go through this one more time?
Yeah. Premise one. In fact, let me write it on the screen.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yes. Or I'm sorry, there's even an additional premise there. So it's going to be, we got premise one, justice is treating like cases alike. Treating like cases alike is necessary for fair self-evaluation. Fair self-evaluation is necessary for self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is necessary for self-respect. And then self-respect is necessary for living a good life. Therefore, justice is necessary for living a good life.
Okay. Why would you say that's so under this? So we can say that we're defining justice as treating like cases alike, but what is the definition of a good life under this syllogism?
Yeah, under the syllogism, I would say that I don't know if I have like a definition of a good life, but I'll say a necessary condition of a good life is going to be that you yourself need to be able to rationally approve of it. Like if you can't even approve of your own life, well, that's not the good life. That's not you're clearly doing something wrong.
So let's say that this person's definition of a good life is just being an egoist that's just going to do whatever benefits them.
And do they approve of that sort of conception?
Yeah, they would probably approve of it. Yeah.
Yep, sure. So then if they did that, they would need, they would need self-respect in the sense that they would need to be able to evaluate their life and say, yeah, this is a good life. But in order to do that, in order to evaluate their own life, they need self-knowledge. They need to be able to know themselves. But in order to have that self-knowledge, they need to be able to fairly evaluate their life. But in order to fairly evaluate their life, they need to be able to treat like cases alike. Therefore, in order to do that, they would need to be just. But justice is
What
at
if
odds with
they-
that.
What if they understand how to treat like cases alike? Like they can comprehend, the concept of treating like cases alike, but then they just decide that what is best for their own personal definition of living a good life is to not do that.
Yeah, sure. So then the reason why they're not living the good life. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're asking, so they know they're disposed towards fair evaluation. Like they know what people deserve, so they're able to know what they deserve, but then they just disregard their rational judgments about what people deserve. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, because it isn't in line with what they think living a good life would be, because to them, living a good life is just, succeeding at all costs by fucking over everyone else.
Yep, sure. So the reason why this one fails is because they are even though they're capable of evaluating their own life, the conclusion that they would arrive at is that they're not living a good life insofar as they constantly and consistently disregard their rational judgments. Like they're making all of these rational judgments about what people deserve, and then they just disregard it. So they're literally not even respecting their own agency or ability to evaluate. Which I would argue is incompatible with self-respect.
And how would you define self-respect under this?
Gosh, I wish you asked me this question some point last year. It's been so long since I did like the virtue ethics reading. I don't know how they want to define self-respect. I'm sure, I wonder if there's going to be like a definition in this paper. Self-respect as maybe I just want to define it the way that I defined it earlier, which is just like the ability to rationally approve of the way that you're living your life. And if you're disregarding your rational evaluations, then you can't rationally approve of the way that you're living your life. Insofar as you've evaluated one thing to be one way of acting to be the right course of action, and you've evaluated, and you end up just not taking that course of action. So in that way, you'd be self-disrespecting.
But how is it not? So when you say rational,
Yep.
would that just mean that you're acting logically, like your premises are leading to the conclusion or whatever?
Yeah, just that there isn't like a contradiction in your view, either practical or like logical. So a practical contradiction is when you so we ascribe to somebody like practical irrationality when they have a goal, there's something that they need to do to achieve that goal, and then they just don't do it. So for example, let's say that your goal is to graduate college, but instead what you do is you like jerk off at home all day, instead of going to your classes. And to graduate college, it's necessary to go to your classes. At that point, we would just say that this person is acting practically irrational, that they probably just need to give up the goal of graduating college if they want to be rational.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I get what you're saying.
So
I
the
think
reason why
maybe I would
yeah.
maybe I would disagree with premise 2 then, because I think that someone could have fair self-evaluation. They could, again, like I said, they could understand what like cases are without treating those like cases alike.
Okay, so sure. So you're in this instance, you're saying that they evaluate like, here's what this person deserves. Here would be like the fair thing to do, and I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah, that they think that in order to achieve what they consider the good life, they are going to not treat people fairly, because if they treat people fairly, it's like people who go and conquer other nations or
Mhm.
whatever. If you treat that nation, if you give human rights to all the people in the nation that you're conquering, well, then you're not going to be able to kill them all and take their land.
Yeah, sure. Wait, one sec. Let me see how the formalism of this goes. Wait, okay, treating like cases. Okay, but then so contrapositive this. So not treating like cases alike. Okay, we're looking for an instance where you have fair self-evaluation, but you don't treat like cases alike. I don't think that what you've described is a counterexample. In order for it to be a counterexample, you would need to give like a case where somebody like fairly self-evaluates, and then they don't treat like cases alike.
I feel like there's I've heard of examples of serial killers who, they're in prison and they say like, "Oh yeah, I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but I did it anyway because it's what you know, I knew that I wasn't treating the person fairly, but I did it anyway because it's what I wanted to do."
Yeah. Oh, well, then that person, under their own view, acts practically irrational because they evaluate what they should be doing as one thing, and then they don't act on what they think they should be doing. Like on this view, they're literally not acting in the way that they think they should be acting. They reflect on what they should do. They rationally evaluate that this is what they should do, and then they don't do it. So under their very own view, they would say that they're not acting rationally.
But I could imagine someone who just has the worldview that what they should be doing is whatever brings them the maximum amount of like hedonistic pleasure or whatever.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
they're like, I know that this person is the same as me. I know that their life, they're a like case to me, but I'm just going to decide that I'm going to take advantage of them anyway. I
Yeah.
agree that it definitely would be immoral under my system. I'm just trying to understand how this is like objectively immoral.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Well, in the case that you're describing, the argument that I'm making against that person is that they lack the ability to evaluate their own life insofar as they're not a reliable evaluator of people or what they deserve, which means that they're not going to be a reliable evaluator of themselves and what they deserve, because there's no feature that fundamentally makes different themselves and the other person, which means that the judgment that they have that they deserve this one thing is just completely based on nothing, because there is no difference between them and the other person. So that would make it an irrational evaluation.
But it wouldn't be based on nothing. It would be based on them trying to achieve their own definition of the good life.
Mhm. Yeah. So when I say based on nothing, I'm saying that it's not based on any like fact about themselves and a fact about the other person.
I mean, the fact about themselves is they want to experience more pleasure, and the best way for them to do that is to take advantage of this other person.
Yes, yeah, but then that leads to like self-contradiction. So if you want like a good example of like a Kantian contradiction, this person both needs other people to not use them as like a means to an end, like a mere means to achieve their goals. I don't know, like use them as like a tool in their goals. Because if other people were using that person as a tool in their goals, well, then they just wouldn't be able to achieve any of their own goals. So they both simultaneously need to be saying that, you know, they need to commit themselves to this position for themselves, but not for others. But that's unbased.
I don't think that's necessarily true. They could just have a might makes right type, mentality where like, yeah, everyone else can also do the same thing that I'm doing, and I just need to be strong enough. I need to have have a gun to protect myself or whatever, because other people might also be doing the same thing I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then the reason why that's going to be an unjustified view is because even if they were in like a separate position, let's say that this person one day got weaker, well, they would still hold that they have all these goals that they should pursue, even though they're now in the weak position. So they would be abandoning this principle if they were in some separate position, which means that that can't possibly be like a rationally consistent position.
How is it not? They could just be believing that, like, now that they've become weaker, now other people get to take advantage of them.
Because then they wouldn't actually be exercising their own autonomy. They would be kind of trapped in a contradiction where they both want to exercise their autonomy and not exercise their autonomy. They're like autonomously willing that they don't have autonomy in that position.
But I feel like the autonomy would just be like, the lack of autonomy would just be caused by their circumstances rather than by a contradiction in their worldview.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a contradiction to be autonomously willing that you don't have autonomy.
Well, I think they would still. I don't understand how it's not having autonomy, because they would think that, like, they have autonomy to take advantage of other people. Other people also have autonomy to take advantage of them.
But other people taking advantage of you is, I mean, like pretty trivially not you having autonomy.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Other people taking advantage of you is.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they could just accept that. Like, is it not? I guess they could believe that if someone else succeeds in taking advantage of them, quote unquote, that they're not actually like taking advantage of them, because they're just maximizing their own might makes right against you. So it's not really like they could just accept, like, oh well, now I'm on the short end of the stick of the might makes right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that runs into like the same contradiction from earlier.
Which was which one?
Which is that they're autonomously willing that they don't have autonomy.
I feel like this is a thing that can happen. Like, people can, like if you sign a contract with someone, and you autonomously agree that you're going to be doing a certain thing, I wouldn't say that that's like a contradiction, because as a stipulation of your agreement with the person, you're using your autonomy to give up some of your autonomy. So I feel like under their worldview, it could just be, an entailment of the view that they're not going to have full autonomy because they're trying to maximize their autonomy. I don't necessarily see how that's like a contradiction.
I guess, could you run the scenario by me one more time? I guess like I struggle to see how it's not just like I think like you're both, when you exercise your autonomy, you're committed to saying that you should have your autonomy. If you're not committed to saying that you should have your autonomy, well, then you're not really, I mean, at that point, you have a goal that clearly requires your autonomy, but you'd be saying that you don't have a reason to have it. Okay. Yeah, I think that that does lead to if you have a goal that requires an exercising of your autonomy to achieve, then you have a reason to have your autonomy. So if you're exercising your autonomy to take away your autonomy, then you'd have a goal that requires your autonomy to achieve, and then it results in you no longer having I guess I think it's just like a direct contradiction. You're both committed to saying that you should and shouldn't have your autonomy.
And how would you square this with like the fact that like people can use their autonomy to give up some of their autonomy with like signing contracts or things like that?
Well, it depends on the nature of the contract, but like ones that seriously deprive you of your autonomy, I don't think you should do that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that like that doesn't necessarily mean that they're no longer having any autonomy.
I think I would need like the specific example to evaluate. Like certainly some of them are going to lead to contradictions.
Yeah, obviously, if like you sold yourself into slavery or something like
Yeah.
that, would obviously be a contradiction if you valued autonomy. So basically, your argument is that in order for this self-interested person to be taking in like actions in their own self-interest, they would need to value autonomy, or at least value their own autonomy. I guess what I'm trying to understand is how would it not be possible for them to like only value their own autonomy?
Sure, because so the argument that I want to make is that there's going to be like nothing that separates them from another person. That there is no thing that makes this true of them, but not of another person. That if they were in the position of another person, that the argument would still go through. Also, they're committed to saying that, you know, if somebody stronger came along, then that stronger person could deprive them of all of their goals, but then that kind of renders their goals to not actually be goals.
How could that not be still a goal if like, because like if you're competing in a sport and you know that like if you're in a race but you know that if a faster person comes and beats you in the race, then you're not going to achieve the goal of winning the race.
Wait, say that one more time.
Like if you're in a race and your goal is to win the race, but you know that if a faster person is racing against you, that they're going to beat you. It could still be a goal to win the race while still knowing that if someone stronger or faster comes along, that you're going to lose to that person.
Yeah, because I wouldn't universalize that sort of right. I don't think that the right to win a race is a universalizable right. I think the right to participate in a race is a universalizable right.
And you'd say that the autonomy would be considered the universal.
Yes. Yeah, I think you can universalize autonomy. Yeah. In fact, I think you have to universalize autonomy. Like you have to say that you're committed to the value of, I don't know. For example, like as kind of an offshoot argument, I think that you're committed to saying that everybody ought to have freedom and well-being because in order to achieve any of your goals, you're going to need freedom and well-being. You know, I can't run the race or be like an egoist or do any of that if I don't have freedom and well-being. But if I ought to have it, then you ought not interfere with it. And if you ought not interfere with it, then what I'm saying is that I have a right to it just because I'm an agent who's pursuing goals. But you're also an agent pursuing goals, which means that you must also have this right. Otherwise, I'm committed to a contradiction that being an agent both is sufficient for this right, but also not sufficient for this right.
So in the analogy, it would be kind of more similar to, like participating in the race rather than like winning the race or whatever.
Yeah. I think that you have the right to participate in the race. I don't think you have the right to win it. Like you can have like the freedom and well-being to participate in the race. Like you can will that and universalize that. You can't universalize having the freedom and well-being to win the race.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Yeah,
My mind's kind of going
yeah.
in circles now that we've gone down like all these different.
Yeah. I'm not expecting you to say like, oh gosh, you know, there it is. Ethics are objective, but I don't know, something to think about. I think, I don't know. I think the virtue ethics argument, I think it's probably the true one, but I still think it has like a good deal of work that I want to do on it. But the argument that I just made, I think, is like really easy to understand and also gets you to the conclusion that ethics are objective. But it's just the argument. Okay, I'm an agent. What that means is that I take actions to achieve goals. In order to achieve any of my goals, I need the freedom and well-being to do so, which means that I need for you to not interfere with any of that. And at that point, if you're saying nobody should interfere with this thing, you're making like a negative rights claim to your freedom and well-being just on the basis that you're an agent. That was kind of the starting point, is that I'm an agent. But if your agency is sufficient for you to have these rights, then all agents must have these rights. Therefore, every agent has a right to freedom and well-being.
But obviously, like, what is a negative right is going to be sort of context dependent. Like how much of obviously you're not going to maximally be able to do whatever you want.
Yep.
Because obviously, like, the state would have still put like restrictions on what you are and aren't able to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, that's more of like a pragmatic thing. I think that that's probably beyond the scope of ethics. I think ethics just concerns itself with what you have reason to do and what you don't have reason to do. So, I agree. Like, the state is going to restrict your ability to exercise certain rights, but my argument is that morally speaking, everybody has the right to exercise their freedom and well-being to the extent that it doesn't start interfering with others' freedom and well-being.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Well,
You got anything else?
lots to think about.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. All right. Have a good one, man.
Yeah, you too. You too. Hey, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, doing all that good stuff. I only have one person in the guest request box. We'll see if we can't get a real argument related to God going. Sorry, this is gonna be a weird video. But yeah, or like a weird like VOD. Let's read some supers, but I currently only have one person requesting to join. So if you disagree with the topic, if you think that God does exist, specifically if you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran, and you're 18 or older, I ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. And if you fit that criteria, then feel free to join. Okay, let's read supers. Barnabas, thanks so much for the super chat. I'm late to the convo. How does father depends on the son to be a father not immediately qualify two separate distinct beings? I don't know, man. The Trinity's a mess. I have no idea. Kieran, thanks so much for the super chat. The Raven paradox is one of many examples of why Bayesianism is the goat. It isn't confusing at all under that framework. That might be true. I haven't read enough on Bayesianism to. I haven't really. I need to. It's on my to-read list. Everything's on my to-read list. Grimy Loco, thanks so much. Thanks so much, super chat. Seppian, see you a lot. Know you're loved up high. Well, I wish there was some evidence for that. The Mount Tricks, thanks so much, super chat. Hi, Ian. You should put relaxing flute music whenever your guest starts crashing out. P.S. Love your content. One of the things that I want to do, I want to get like sponsorships, and whenever the guest starts like having like a real deal crash out, I just start like reading the sponsorship, like, wow, this guy got fucking cooked. But if you want to get better at cooking, you should, try out Blue Apron. And then I just do like a full ad read over their crash out. I think that would be impeccable. Helping MAGA deconstruct. Thanks so much for the super chat. Ryan just perfectly described capitalists, or just described capitalists perfectly. True. Helping MAGA deconstruct. Thanks so much for the super chat. Many serial killers are saved by becoming Christians in prison. John Wayne Gacy and BTK considered themselves lifelong Christians. Rock hard for Doug and Simply Wet for Sharon. True. King Mouse, thanks so much for the super chat. Might makes right is a double-edged philosophy. Yeah, I think it's likely self-defeating. Sorry, I had to get my whoa. Relax with Russell ASMR. Thanks so much for the super chat. Never heard of the Raven's paradox. Will be interesting to read about later. Similar to the black swan fallacy, in the first place, there are white ravens. If you want a good place to read about it, if you don't want to read about that on Wikipedia, if you want like a philosophical resource, I know that on the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy webpage, that's iep.utm.edu. Just type Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. They have an article titled "Got to get all the voice cracks out pre-debate." That way I don't have the aura loss when it happens of it happening in a debate. On the IEP, the article is titled "Evidence." If you go there, under the section "Some Problems of Evidence," there's the Raven's paradox laid out, and then there's like specific solutions that attempt to solve it. I haven't read that, but I bet IEP probably gives a better description than Wikipedia. Excuse me. All right, with that, we'll go to the next guest. What's up, Kat? How's it going? Hello, are you there? Kat, you're crashing out in the comments. Okay. Do I use IEP or SCP more? I think I'd consider SCP to be my go-to. Although I think IEP technically has more articles. How's it
How are you?
doing? Well, how old are you?
I am 28.
Yep. And what religion are you?
I'm kind of in between religions right now. I was raised Catholic, and I actually ended up going to a seminary last year, and that whole experience made me totally reject the faith, honestly.
Many such cases.
Yeah, and I wasn't even going to like be a priest or whatever. I was just going to be like a hospital chaplain, but I took this moral theology class, and instead of talking about like human suffering and how to handle it and charity, like it was all about sex. Like that was all, they were just obsessed with like how bad sex is and how the world is over sexualized. And it's like maybe there's a place for that discussion, but it's like there's so many other problems in the world. I don't know why that's the priority. You know?
Definitely.
So
makes you question.
Yeah, and maybe it was just a bad professor. You know, I'm sure that there are Catholics out there that care about the welfare of humanity and care about making a better world, you know, but it just really turned me off that the class was moral theology, which is kind of a broad title, and it was so honed in on the sex ethic, you know. So yeah, I remember we talked. I was on one of your lives a week or two ago, and we talked about a lot of topics. I am interested. What do you think of? I don't know if this will be disappointing because it's not directly a God question, but do you accept the existence of a self?
I mean, I think you kind of have to, right? I think that we just have good reason to think that the self exists. I probably want to say that the
Can
self...
you give me some of those?
What? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because I mean, I've been. This is kind of motivated by Alex O'Connor's current investigation in this topic. Then it motivated me to investigate this topic, and sort of the Buddhist arguments against the self. And even within Buddhism, it's a debated topic, but the large majority don't accept a self. But from our last discussion, you seem to come at things from a very like Kantian perspective. And Kant has a very interesting view of, you know, we assume the self and the self is noumenal, so we can't ever fully know, but we have to assume based on, for the purpose of moral agency, basically. So is that your view or something analogous to it?
I don't think so. I hold to Kant, or I take like a pretty Kantian approach to my ethics, but I don't take a Kantian approach to the self necessarily. My account of self is going to be that it's the self is like definitely for sure the mind, and then it's a question of okay, how does the mind persist through time? Like how do we want to account for the mind persisting through time? But a good reason to think that the self is the mind, if it's anything at all, is going to be, you know, if you look at like conjoined twins conjoined twins are one organism, or they in some cases can be one organism, but they have like two minds. So I would say that that's like two persons.
Interesting.
It just
That's
seems like,
fascinating. I never thought about that
yep,
point of view. Yeah, absolutely.
yep. I don't know. That seems
Yeah,
to be good
that's
evidence.
honestly, I mean, I've been recently, like I said, I was investigating the Buddhist arguments about the self. And there are Buddhists, it's a minority in the whole of the tradition, but there are Buddhists like the Thai forest tradition who push back against the absolute non-self doctrine, who believe, just as you were describing, like that there is a mind that persists throughout time and even to them throughout multiple incarnations. And it does seem like that. I mean, going through just our own experience, there has to be some continuity in each of our individual lives, right? We don't wake up each day and we're a new person, right? There are things that change about us through the years, but it's not like this rapid change. And sometimes when the Buddhists talk about there is no self because it's all impermanent, it's as if they're portraying the self as changing every single day or even every single moment in some regards, but there has to be some continuity. So when you talk about the mind, are you a complete physicalist, or do you think that there's a possibility of a non-physical mind?
I'm probably a physicalist.
Okay, interesting. So when you talk about the mind, it's no different than the brain.
Yeah, I think it probably reduces to the brain. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's if you lose your memory, if your brain is damaged in some way, and you don't remember who you were before the brain damage, would you still say a self exists?
It depends how severe the brain damage is. The brain damage that you're describing sounds quite severe. At that point, I think I'd probably just say that you're like a new person.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't really have anything on the God front. I honestly just wanted to ask you the self question.
I
So
do think that there's
appreciate
like,
that.
I think that philosophy of self is probably a field where there aren't like good answers. Like I know that there's going to be like reductios and bullet bites to my view.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's really a topic that I just now see a lot of Westerners getting into. Like the East, they've been into this for like thousands of years, but it seems like a newer topic in Western dialogue.
Sure.
So it's I'll be interested to see where it goes in the next few years.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on up. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. And with that, we'll go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going?
What's up, man? How are you?
Doing well, yeah. How old are you?
I am 22, so
And-
I'm over 18.
Sure. And what religion?
So I'm Catholic.
What makes you think God exists?
So before we get into it, I'm kind of curious. I've passed by your videos before. Do you have a problem with the fact that like an unmoved mover exists, or is it just with the idea of Catholicism or Christianity?
So, in terms of like an unmoved mover, I don't think that there can be. So, when we speak of an unmoved mover, what we're speaking of is like change. Like the proper way to understand Aristotle's terminology is passed through Aquinas. When we talk about like an unmoved mover, what we're specifically speaking of is an unchanged changer. I don't think there can be a first change. So I don't think that such a thing is possible.
Okay. Yeah, because I always think it's important, like when, debating the existence of God, with whatever your definition might be, is like to hold back from the religion first and first get down to like what really God is. And I guess the argument I wanted to bring to your attention, which has kind of, from my journey to atheism to agnosticism to Catholicism, was the contingency argument.
Sure.
And I know there is, debates against that, as with any argument, but I can't really wrap my mind around the fact that there is not a necessary being, as a contingency argument states, that we are all contingent beings. Everything is contingent, but you cannot logically have an infinite amount of contingencies.
So we probably want to get clear on this. When you speak of contingency, you can mean one of two things. Either what you mean by contingency is something that is possible but not necessary, something that could be the case, could not be the case, or you mean something that depends on something else. So if what you mean by contingency is the first one, like the modal sense of like, possible but not necessary, then what the argument attempts to argue for is that there's like some being that couldn't fail to exist. Um, and then the other sense of it that's like, okay, a contingent being is one that depends on a different being for its existence. Then what you get to is an independent being. I think atheism is compatible both with some sort of necessary being and with some sort of like independent being, but we should probably clarify which one you're talking about.
For sure. And I'm glad you bring that up too, because in my mind, it's like, and I have some actual like calculations I did here that just, it's from a while ago, but with the contingency argument, I mean, like for the viewers to make it more simple, it's like I'm contingent on my existence is contingent on my parents, mating and producing a child,
Mhm.
right? And then you can trace that all the way back, like whether you want to go evolution, the creation, all the way to the creation of the universe. And what science's best explanation for that is the Big Bang theory, right? But even then, like I don't see that as necessary, and I think most scientists would agree, and again, like these are all inductive, so there's no way for any viewers watching, because I saw in the comments like there's no way to actually prove this, this is all inductive reasoning, but I think the probability of life, me, you, the universe happening from chance is way too great to assume that that's a strong or cogent argument to say everything happened from chance.
That seems to be a pivot away from like the contingency argument. I guess like, are we still talking about the contingency argument? Are we?
Sorry, yeah. Can you clarify what you asked again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. What sense of contingency? So I think I actually understand the sense just based on what you said. In terms of the contingency argument, it sounds like what you're saying, you're speaking of it in terms of ontological dependence. So if in terms of ontological dependence, I think that there is an ontological chain that goes back infinitely, which is like the causal chain. I think the causal chain goes back infinitely. I think that there's an end to the grounding chain. Like there's kind of like two senses of dependence. There's like temporal dependence, and then there's like I think people use the terms like hierarchical and like vertical dependence, or not hierarchical. There's like horizontal dependence, which is like dependence over time on like this thing at this time depends on this thing at that time. And then there's also like the vertical dependence. So if what we're speaking of is like the vertical dependence, well, I would say that, I depend on my existence on like my atoms. And then they're going to depend on like fields, and then these fields, maybe they're fundamental, maybe they depend on space-time, maybe they emerge from like a wave function. And then depending on what view turns out to be the right one of those things is going to be the fundamental thing that doesn't depend on anything for its existence. But if what you're saying is like the horizontal type of dependence, like the causal dependence, well, I think this chain can just go back infinitely.
Okay, so with it going back infinitely, this is where it can get kind of tough and mind-bending, because let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that the beginning of everything was the Big Bang, okay? Because that's the best idea of what we had, that caused everything, right?
I don't grant that.
You don't?
The
Okay,
Big Bang
so
does not claim to be the beginning. There was like a recent survey of physicists. Let me pull this on up. Where is it? Where I have too many things. How tragic.
yeah, it's like the more you
Okay.
learn, the more questions you get.
Yep, sure. So, all right. So according to 68% of physicists, the Big Bang is a theory that says that the universe evolved from a hot, dense state that says nothing about whether there was an absolute beginning of time or not. The Big Bang does not claim to be the beginning. The Big Bang should not be understood as the beginning, but rather there was a hot, dense state, and then that state rapidly expands. That's all the Big Bang is claiming to be.
Sure. So So then I guess I ask your opinion of like, I mean, I guess you could say you don't know, but like what in your mind, like, do you really think it transcends like a sense time? Because like my understanding of time is there has to be a beginning to it for time to exist.
I'd argue the opposite. I don't think time can have a beginning because so all change happens in time. The reason for that is that if you have a change, then you have something, you have like a past and a present state. A thing changes from being one way in the past to being one way in the present, but that's temporal. That must happen in time. So if you have a change, then you have a time, and there can't be a first change because, you would have a state with no change and a state with change, and then the state with no change would change. There would be a change in the state with no change, which is a contradiction. So there can't be a first change, but change exists. So then change must have always existed. So, change always existed. If change exists, then time exists. Therefore, time must have always existed.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe I'm ill-equipped, but I mean, my understanding is that from the Big Bang, the belief or this what scientists try to make, most plausible is that space and time are intertwined dimensions from the Big Bang. And
No.
is that not correct?
Yeah, like the survey that I just showed you, the majority of physicists claim this is like the opinion of 68% of cosmologists is that the Big Bang just makes no claims to be the beginning of time or anything of that sort.
Okay. I mean, I understand that like a survey, but I'm just wondering what's like actually taught. But anyways, I wanted to bring this up to you, and I just wanted to get your opinion about it.
Yeah.
So I did it's rough calculations, but about life essentially happening from chance since the beginning of the observable universe, 14 billion years, of amino acids, atoms, bouncing together randomly in chaotic order to create proteins, and then further on cell life, etc., etc. And I mean, I don't. It's one for a functional protein by chance with atoms in the observable universe for the age of the universe is 1 in the 10 to the 141st power, and then a living cell by chance from that is 1 in 10 to the 40,000th power. And so in my mind, that doesn't satisfy, I guess, what I can understand in my human mind of life happening from chance.
I'm
I
very
feel like there
curious.
has
Could you walk me through your calculations?
yeah. So if every 1 in roughly 10 to the 80th power atoms in the observable universe, so I mean that's just a scientific statistic, was colliding 1 billion times per second, which is 10 to the 9th power for 14 billion years. The total number of possible random chemical interactions is about 1 in 10 to the 106 total tries.
1 in
And then
10 to the
it's basically 1 in 10 with 106 zeros after it.
Sure. You're saying that that's the odds that if you were just randomizing atoms a billion
Yes.
times, is it what, a billion times a second?
Billion times a second.
If you're
colliding a billion
randomizing atoms a billion times a second, you're saying that the odds that that results in like a protein is 1 in 10 to the 160th?
Yeah, well, that's just for random chemical interactions.
Sure. But then, I mean, there are like specific rules by which chemical interactions are going to be inclined or disinclined. So amino acids form all over the place. I think that if you ran these calculations, like if you had amino acids interacting with other amino acids, what are the odds that these form a protein? I mean, quite high. And amino acids, or at least higher than that, and amino acids form like genuinely everywhere. We've literally found them on asteroids.
Yeah, but I in my mind, it's like from random. It seems that there's some sort of I don't know what's the right word for it. Like some sort of direction. There's a directional cause to create life in the universe.
Okay, I'm not really sure how that's responsive to the point. Also, if there's like a directional cause to create life in the universe, then I mean, why isn't there life elsewhere? I mean, why is it the case that all the places that we look, we don't find life?
Well, I mean, that argument is, in my mind, that argument is kind of redundant because our scope of the actual universe is enormously small,
Hmm.
and what we've been able to test, but I don't want to get too off track. I really enjoyed talking to you. I don't want to take time away from anyone else, but I stick with the contingency argument. I guess you don't necessarily hold with that argument whatsoever, but in my mind, I just can't get behind that there's an infinite amount of contingencies that have
Okay, it
always
seems like
existed.
we're pivoting. Okay, so we pivoted from the contingency argument to life, and then we're pivoting back from life to the contingency argument. Okay. I don't I'm not sure like what's the problem with having an infinite number of like temporal contingencies?
I mean, because based off what I know, that there was a start, and sure, if majority of physicists now are saying that the Big Bang is not the start, then and I know you can't say because science can't prove it, it's true. I know that's fallible, but I think it's more probable to say that there was some sort of law or designed way for life to create itself, rather than it just happened from pure chaos.
We should really stick with just one of these, It feels like we once again pivoted from the contingency argument back to life. Okay, maybe what I can put forward, I made this argument a bit earlier. Maybe I could just get like a clear response to it. I made an argument for why time must have always existed, because if change exists, then time exists, and change always existed, which means that time must have always existed. Which part of that would you disagree with?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah. If change exists, then time exists. Change always existed, therefore time always existed.
Sure, but I mean, I would break down your second premise. Like, how do we know that change has always existed?
Yeah, because let's say change didn't always exist. There would be a state of reality that has no change in it. And then a change would occur in the state of reality with no change in it to become a state of reality with change in it. But we can't have change in a changeless state. It's a contradiction.
Sure. I mean,
Therefore, there can be no state where change begins. So it must have always existed.
yeah, I don't understand. Can you say that argument again
Yeah,
on why
in fact, I
change
can
has
like,
always existed?
yep, in fact, I can type it out on the screen. Let me get this on up there. Okay. If change did not always exist, then a changeless state would change into a changing state. A changeless
Okay.
state cannot change. Therefore, change always existed.
Okay. This is better to have it written out on the screen. Okay, I see what you're saying. Change did not always exist, and a change of state changing. So a change of state cannot change because I see what you're saying. Okay.
Mhm.
So, but I feel like that's within the confines of like, our universe, and I mean, you can get super deep into physics, but our dimensions, right? And so it's like, if something outside of that, like, why are we limiting that to not be able to change something in a different state,
I'm not really sure which premise here you'd be rejecting.
Because you're talking, let's just say in our universe, things change, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying it cannot have started because then it would have changed.
Yeah, there would be a change before the first change.
Why we conceive start that? Why can't it be a started? Because you're saying that there was a changeless state to begin with. That's what the premise is saying. What if there wasn't a changeless state to begin with? It just didn't exist.
Well, oh yeah, then there just would have always been change.
Well, there would have been a beginning to it.
In order to have a beginning, then you need some sort of changeless state that changes into a changing state.
But
You have a
that's
state with no
assuming
change,
that's
and then it
assuming that
becomes
there's
a
a
state with.
changeless
So
state
you're saying
before.
that there was always a changing state.
Well, but what you're saying is that there was a changeless state to begin with.
No, I'm saying that change must have always existed because you can't have a first change.
I don't understand why you couldn't.
Because there would need to be a change from the state where change doesn't exist to the state where it does. So there's change before the first change, which is a contradiction.
So things change in our universe, and you're saying because they change, they cannot have been in a changeless state beforehand. But why couldn't it have just started as a changing state? That's what I'm
Okay.
trying to understand from you, because what this is assuming
Did
in
that
this
changing
argument that,
state always exist?
yeah, if it existed from when it started, why couldn't it have been started as a changing state?
What I'm asking is, did it always exist? Either it always existed or did not always exist. If the changing state always existed, then change always existed. But
I mean, always existed as far as time has existed.
I'm just asking if it always existed or whether it had a beginning.
Well,
Did it come into existence or did it always exist? It needs to be one or the other.
I think it came. I think that's kind of limiting the scope of the argument here, because
It's limiting the scope of the argument to logic. These are the only two logical possibilities. Either it was or it wasn't.
Like, I mean, you could say that, but that can be kind of redundant, because I think as soon as time was created, then change was created. It existed.
But time can't be created because there would be a timeless state that changes into a temporal state.
But we understand
So we
time
would
as a
have
dimension.
change before time.
Yeah. So.
But if change exists, then time exists. So we would have time before time.
Not necessarily.
Necessarily. I could motivate that argument too. If time begins to exist, then a timeless state changes into a temporal state. If change exists, then time exists. If a timeless state changes into a temporal state, then change exists before time. Time cannot exist before time. Therefore, time cannot begin.
Okay. You're very smart, Ian. I just want to say that, and I love debating this with you.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very
and I
kind
love
of you.
watching. Yeah, I love watching your videos, and I think this stuff is important. And maybe I'm not as well equipped as I thought, because there's a part of me being Catholic, getting away from the God thing, that like there is sort of this mystical idea that like none of time did not exist to begin with, right? And it was created, and time had a beginning, right? But what you're saying, this argument to it, is that a timeless state cannot be, like, what if there was no state at all? I guess that's what I'm getting to. Like, there's no state, it's nothing.
Well, then you would be getting something out of nothing, but nothing doesn't have potential.
Yes, unless acted upon.
But then you would have the thing that acts upon it. So you would have something.
Yeah. But
so you'd have both nothing and something, which is a contradiction.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I don't know where to really go from here.
That's fine.
But I know I'm getting roasted.
That's okay. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, but yeah, dude. I mean, I'm definitely, I'm still in my junior year of college here, studying philosophy. So definitely learning.
That's super cool.
Yep. So Still learning, dude. I think I'm going to still remain with the idea that there is an unmoved mover. Because I don't know that I can just get behind the fact that time has always existed. And I mean, there's countless arguments to suggest and disprove. So
Sure. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on up here.
thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it, man.
Yep. You have a good one. All right, let's read supers. It's time to read some supers. Oh, also, guest, you should join the Discord. Catholic Thinker wants you to join the Discord, and I want you to join the Discord too. We'd love to see you there. It's discord.gg/allegedlyian. This is for everyone. We also do a reading group. We're reading Michael Huemer's Knowledge, Reality, and Value. We're almost done with it. We're currently on chapter 16, which is the obligation of charity. It goes over Singer's argument for charity. It's a good one. It's arguably one of the most important arguments of moral philosophy that came into being in the last. It might literally be just the most important applied ethical argument in the history of philosophy. It's up there, seriously. Fancy Sling, thanks so much for the super chat. It seems wanting to win a contest implies participating in the contest fairly. The M bike is a good example. A single person probably is fine riding versus a breadwinner who others depend on for their livelihood. I don't think that the person who others depend on for their livelihood, I don't think you have like an obligation to let them win. I'm not sure if that's what the argument's putting forward. Loro Rana, thanks so much for super chat. This crash out is sponsored by Animal Ethics. You should strive to be vegan. True. Kahoto-kun, thanks so much for the super chat. Everything I see, I show. I can carry nothing, but you lament when I can hold no more. Light is the key to feeding me. Fucking eyes? I don't know. Is it tung 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 sahur? I don't know. That's interesting. People are saying it's a mirror. Okay, the riddle again. Everything I see, I show. I can carry nothing, but you lament when I can hold no more. Light is the key to feeding me. What am I? I think that mirror probably makes sense of some of this, but I think what it doesn't really make sense of, I can carry nothing, but you lament when I can hold no more. I don't know what it means to say that a mirror can hold no more. Like the mirror is like full. Who the fuck laments when their mirror is full? Does it just mean like it's like filled up in terms of the image? No, I think I was right. I think it probably is tung 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 sahur. Oh, is it a camera? Maybe it is a camera. Helping MAGA deconstruct. Thanks so much for the super chat. Modern Stoic, you have no way to calculate that. That's probably true. Hayden Walton, thanks so much for the super chat. Most natural processes aren't random. True. I agree with that. Virtuous Path, thanks so much for the super chat. I have semantic satiation for the word change. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. I need to make the argument sharper in that way, or like more rhetorically appealing, because I think the argument might just work, especially under a theory of time. Sonos Percussion, thanks so much for the 50 gifted memberships. 50 gifted? That's crazy. That's incredible. That's spectacular. Let's fucking go. I don't know. That's like really cool. Thank you so much. Big W. I don't know. I really appreciate that. I don't know. Like seriously, I don't know. Big super chats like that allow me to do more. In terms of the stream, they allow me to get better technology, better books, better pizza, Papa John's. Fuck, I'm still thinking about the riddle. I almost wonder if I should like feed the riddle to like Grok or ChatGPT. There was recently my girlfriend and I were trying to like figure something out. I hope this isn't like sharing too much information, but she accidentally forgot to take her birth control for like 2 nights in a row, but it was like the week before the placebo. So then she like started her period early, and then we were trying to figure out, okay, do you like take the placebo pills that are remaining, or do you just like start the new pack? Like, what do you do? And we literally got different contradictory answers. Like the AIs were split down the middle on what she should do. I don't know. It's yeah. I see Jordan's in the comment section. Maybe he'll know. Although it's like probably too specific. Fancy's Ling. Thanks so much. Well, yeah, okay. Like I know a lot of people skip it, but it's like the question is like, okay, for the placebo time, do you like start the new pack? Like, do you like just jump because, it's already started, like the period's already started. So do you just jump to the next, like the non-placebo pills for the next month? But yeah, regardless. Okay. Fancy Sling, thanks so much for the tube chat. The contest and bike were to separate thoughts. Sorry about that. Oh, the contest and the bike were separate thoughts. Thought 1, winning implies participation. Thought 2, the rider is probably fine, but breadwinner ought not. Oh, sure. I see that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You'd have like, that would definitely change like the value evaluation. For sure. Kodo-kun, thanks so much for the super chat. Yep, camera. Okay, he's saying that the camera is the correct answer there. Big W for the $50 super chat as well. That's like genuinely crazy. Big W for the $50 super chat to Kodo-kun. Let's get a big W for him. That's really cool, and I appreciate that. I don't know, like the super chat, like big super chats like that allow me to like maximize my potential. I can get all the tablets that I need, all the tech that I need. I recently upgraded to fiber optic internet, so hopefully there will be fewer interruptions. Biomechanic, thanks so much for the super chat. Thoughts on the red/blue 50% of blue die button? I don't think that I have a reason to push the blue button. I think that I have a reason to push the red button, not dying. I don't think that I have a reason to push the blue button. That's dumb. It probably also depends on your formulation. I know a lot of people want to like weasel their way into the blue button by saying like, oh, well, there's going to be this group of children that's going to like choose 50-50. But I don't know, man. If your kid like wanders in the middle of the road, like obviously if I'm in like a position to help them, I should help them. I don't think that I'm obligated to like almost certainly like end my own life, which is like the likely outcome of pushing the blue button. I don't think that I'm obligated to end my own life to save your child who walked out in the road. All you fucks should push the blue button, but I'm going red. All right, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. Whoa, GameCube Daniel, thanks so much for the 12-month resubscription on Twitch. 12-month resubscription. That's really cool. You've been here for a year.
Yeah, GameCube Daniel's one of our Twitch originals who then became a mod on Twitch, and we love having him here for the stream every day. I think he also had like 120 streak going. So that's really awesome. But I'm interrupting to say that Ian is not allowed to decide whether he gets to push a button or not. They're only allowed to push the 4-year-old button, I think is the
4-year-old? What's the 4-year-old button? What the fuck is the 4-year-old button?
I don't know. I'm just here to tell everyone that we are way behind on tapping on TikTok. So get those taps in, folks. We don't have a lot of time left. Tap.
Yeah, I'll probably go a bit late.
And also, Ian, we need to get you to watch Dairy Girls, so that you can get up to date on the troubles in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, with the Catholics and the Protestants, and the UK and Ireland. So that the whole thing is like Northern Ireland is part of like the UK, and so they're Protestant, Church of England, and then the rest of Ireland, mainland Ireland is very Catholic.
I see.
And Dairy Girls is a show about some Catholic schoolgirls during the troubles in Northern Ireland. Great show. Watch it with your girlfriend to make up for the fact that you just told us all about her birth control.
Okay. My bad, G. I didn't know. I have no clue what's too personal or what's not too personal. Okay. Well, on to the next one. Whoa, Cyber. $50 super chat. That kicks ass. Let's get a big W for Cyber. Again, I seriously appreciate this. I don't know. I super appreciate that. I'm like saving up to improve my desk setup. I want to get like a new desk so I can optimally position it, and then also have the monitors. Right now I have both my monitors sitting on chairs, and it's like a janky setup. So I'm trying to get big monitor arms. In fact, and this is this is my insatiable greed. I'm also trying to get 4 monitors because I'm evil. But yeah, it's gonna be maybe $2,500. So I'm saving up for that. Thank you so much, Cyber. Let's get a big W. All right, let's go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going? Many such cases. I'm doing well, yeah. I'm doing, sure. How old are you? And what religion? Sure. What makes you think God exists?
And that would bring the natural question of what makes the Bible reliable. And so that's what I have the argument for, if that's okay.
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so point one.
Oh, wait, sorry, wait, we have no guest audio? Why the fuck do we have no guest audio? Wait, guest, can you keep on talking?
Yeah, I can just gibber gabber, gifted the gab.
Wait, Molly, are we good? What's the deal? Okay, it is fixed. Okay, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what's your argument for God's existence?
My argument for God's existence is the Bible.
Yep.
But then that's going to bring into question the reliability of the Bible. So
sure. Why should I think that the Bible is true?
Awesome. So I have 5 points. So point 1 is that consciousness is a product of natural selection. Point 2 is the information is the currency of consciousness. Point 3 would be the narrative structure is the best way to encode large amounts of information. Point 4 would be that God is outside of our perception. And point 5 would be that God has to reveal himself to us. Conclusion, if God revealed himself to conscious beings, narrative would likely be one of the primary vehicles of revelation. And that gets to narrative. Now, there's also a jump on that, but that's the argument that I have.
I'm going to express a personal preference. Right. Unless you have some familiarity with formal logic, please don't put it into premises. Please just give it informally. But I think I understand what the argument's trying to say informally, which is just, our brain is capable of storing the most information if it's put into a narrative form.
Right.
And then we would expect, if God exists, that he would reveal it to him or to us narratively.
Yes. So if God were to reveal himself, it would be in a narrative form. And so then that would put us in the, well, how do we know that it's the Bible specifically? And so then I would say that so I can probably just boil it all down to, I believe that the Bible speaks to, let me say, the reliability of the Bible. What makes the Bible reliable is its mapping onto reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what way does the Bible map onto reality?
I would say that it speaks to the human condition, and it gives us a great I believe it gives us the best foundation to for human flourishing. Let's say that.
I for sure disagree with that. I mean,
I'm sure.
you have God commanding things like genocides. This is
Right.
horrible for the flourishing of the people that had to carry through with those genocides, and for the people, of course, getting genocided.
Okay. Yeah. So then that's the problem of evil that we're bringing up, or you're saying is that the problem of evil?
Yeah,
God
that is the problem of yeah. That's like definitely a form of the problem of evil. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. And so I guess my answer to that would be that trying not to phrase this in like a Christianese, like his ways are higher than our ways, but that's essentially what the argument would be, that whatever the utmost good is for humanity, it would be that God would know it and that we would discover it.
So, do you think that God gave like a just punishment in the case of genocide? Do you think that when God was like commanding a genocide and he was saying like this is a punishment for their bad actions, that was like a just punishment?
I would say that it was a necessary punishment as far as
Was
just
a
goes.
just punishment?
So by just, do you mean
Like people getting what they deserve?
what they deserve? That's not a claim I would make in general, because I can't. My position would be that that I don't know the fullness of justice. I'm still like discovering what justice would be. And so for me to make a claim, well, not having all of the information would be, let's say, ignorant.
Okay. So you would say that it was not just, but I mean, Deuteronomy 32:4 states that, wait, sorry, let me read the.
Well, I would
the
say
verse.
I wouldn't make a claim whether it was, I would say that it was just virtue by God commanding it, not by, yeah, I'd say that God commanded it, so it makes it just. If God's
That
the moral
seems to
arbiter.
commit you to like ethical absurdities, that sometimes it's just to give infants the death penalty as a punishment.
I don't think that it commits me particularly to ethical absurdities because of the time period that I'm born in and that I live in. We all know that that is very, very bad, and we at this point in time, and based on Jesus coming and what he commands us to do, he would not command ethical absurdities like infanticide or things of that nature.
How could it be very bad if it's also just?
So I would go to that was the ruling that God gave at that specific or particular time for a particular end. And the overall end in that case would justify the means in that situation.
So God's a consequentialist in terms of justice?
So you're gonna have to tell me what consequentialist.
So
like, can you define that?
consequentialism is the view that what determines whether something is right or wrong, or in this case, like just or unjust, is whether or not the consequences of it outweigh the, I don't know, rewards. Or if the rewards of it outweigh like the negatives of it.
I can't make a claim on that. I can't say that God is a consequentialist, but I mean, I guess you can say that God causes all things to work out to the good of those who love him and are called according to his purposes. That would be like consequentialist scripture. So I think there can be an argument, yeah, that's consequentialist.
Sure. So consequentialist forms of justice and with respect to punishments are absurd. I could give you like a number of cases. Maybe I'll just restrict it to like 2. Let's say that you have somebody, you know for a fact that they're innocent, but there's going to be like huge riots that are going to cause tons of damage and destruction unless somebody is convicted for this crime right now.
Hmm.
The better consequences would come about from convicting this person wrongfully, but that's unjust. So, I mean, if you agree with all of that, then it can't possibly be the case that just punishments are determined on the basis of their consequences. Additionally, a problem for your view specifically is that we now have a reason to think that hell doesn't actually exist because the consequences of God threatening us with hell are the exact same whether hell actually exists or doesn't exist. So we have a good reason to think that hell doesn't exist because God is only concerned with the consequences.
In a consequentialist view, you're saying in a consequentialist view, hell doesn't exist.
Yeah, we would just have good reason to think if God is a consequentialist about justice and punishments, then you would have a good reason to think that hell doesn't actually exist, insofar as you would get the same outcome as threatening hell as you would from actually inflicting hell upon people and threatening hell. You know, people would change their behavior in the same way, whether you merely threaten it or whether you threaten it and actually give people hell. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine. I mean, hell's not a huge like thing. So if hell doesn't exist, if God threatens hell and hell doesn't exist, or it does, or hell's not really a huge concern to me. I don't hold like to a very like hard fast view of hell. I would like to revisit the consequentialist conversation as far as so let me just help me understand how the situation that you've given
Yeah.
about like somebody has to pay for this right now, they're going to be right.
Yep. Because
How
the
that is
means
analogous
justify the
to
ends.
right. Can you tell me how that's analogous to what God commanded the genocide in Leviticus?
Yeah, because it falls under your same justification, which is that the means justify the ends.
But
Or
the
sorry,
means
the reverse. The ends justify the means.
okay. So if the ends, I guess the disconnect would be that the ends justifying the means, the ends that we would be talking about. Well, no, okay, no, boom. So I guess the from Christian land, from Christendom, you would argue that they weren't innocent. So the analogy isn't analogous.
What crime did the infants commit?
It's not necessarily a crime. The Bible says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So that would include infants.
Do you think that all deserve the death penalty?
The death penalty? You mean like, what do you mean by
So
that?
you're saying that just in virtue of being born, the infants deserved the death penalty?
That is the biblical claim that if you are born, you're born into sin, and sin produces death. And so death penalty, and I guess how I would answer the death penalty thing is that it's not me prescribing the death penalty. And if it is God that is prescribing the death penalty, it's virtually no difference because everybody's going to die anyway. And so if God is controlling whether you live or die, then the only thing that changes is the timeline.
Okay, so if God believes, so you would say from God's perspective that we all deserve the death penalty?
As so far as I can speak for God, yes.
If God believes something, is it true?
If God believes something, is it true? I would say that question to me doesn't. I'm having a hard time understanding what it would mean if God believes something.
Does God believe any false things?
Does God believe any false thing? By believe, do you mean exist?
Like he just like thinks that they're true?
Does God believe any
So for
false
example,
things?
like God believes that everybody deserves the death penalty. Is God false in that belief, or is that belief true?
I would say that belief is true by virtue of God being the creator of the universe and the moral arbiter of the universe. Yes.
Then it would follow that it's true that everybody
Yes.
deserves the death penalty.
Yes.
That's absurd.
That would be the Christian disposition though.
That's absurd. Yeah, I think that's I don't know. I take that to be like a pretty robust reductio to say that everybody deserves the death penalty. I don't think so. I don't think everyone deserves the death penalty. Like I don't think you deserve the death penalty
Oh, I
unless
don't
you've
think I
committed like a
do.
horrific crime.
I don't think that. So when you say death penalty, like I think you're speaking in a judicial sense
Like
that
like
in
death
a
as a punishment for some sort of I don't know, guilt.
right. Yeah. Well, it's a good news. It's a good thing that that's not the end all be all of it, right? So yeah, we would say as Christians that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and that we would also say that sin produces death. So by virtue of being a sinner, you get the death penalty. Yes, but that's not the end.
Okay.
We would say that
Yep.
there is redemption. So that would be the second part of the Christian position.
Yeah, I think that's like a complete absurdity.
Okay.
Like there's like honestly not even a place to go. We would have to find some different topic to talk about. I'm not going to accept
Okay.
the belief that everyone deserves the death penalty. That's like obviously false. Like I don't know. I don't think I've done something bad enough to deserve the death penalty. I don't think you've done something bad enough to deserve the death penalty.
And I think that's where so I will accept that. I'll accept that that's not something that you want to continue to talk about. Is there anything that you would like to ask me on or press me on or
Sure. Do you think
okay.
that God was always creating, or do you think he began to create at some point?
I think that God began to create at some point. That'd be my position.
Okay, sure. Then you would say that God changes. He goes from being a potential creator to being an actual creator.
You know, it's funny. I heard you ask this, and I had a bunch of responses, but like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till you punch in the mouth.
That's okay.
So can you ask it one more time? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sure. So you're saying God begins to create at some point, but then that seems to commit you to the view that God changes. He goes from not creating and then he changes into creating.
I would say that, yes, God created. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that God changed. I would say that this would be like where the Trinity, where the Trinity kind of comes into topics, and I don't know how you would feel about that. But in the Trinity, or in the view of the Trinity, there's three persons that all are the essence of God. There's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? And so the God that you're talking about that we believe is unchanging would be the Father, and the Son. When the Bible talks about how that would be the person of the Trinity or the person of God that changes or that has changed and allowed for creation to happen would be my view.
Okay. Oh wait, sorry, one sec. Oh wait, is the audio still coming through on YouTube? I saw that there was like a little like jump just now.
I'm gonna get like Starlink or something. I don't know what's going down.
That's okay. Gosh, this damn fiber optic internet should be better. So which one is the one that's unchanging and which one's the one that's changing?
The Father would be the one that's unchanging. The Son would be the one that can change.
Okay, and which one created time?
We would say we'd say God created time. But when we say what's the specific person, I would have to say scripturally, I'd have to say the Son.
Okay, the Son is the creator of time. Well, that couldn't be, because then the Son goes from, if the Son changes, then he exists within time. All things that change are within time.
Well, the Son definitely does exist within time. I would say that, but I would say that the Father does not exist inside of time, that he exists outside of time. I would say that.
That's a problem, because if the Son is the creator of time, then he can't exist within it, because then he would have to be the creator of himself.
Can we, I love this. I watched your apologetics, and you talk about time. Can we talk about time? Because I think that would be something that could help us in this situation. So when we're talking about time, You say that time is change, like time equals change. If there is change, there is time.
No, I don't make
Oh,
that
okay.
claim.
I
I claim
misunderstand
that change existing is sufficient for time existing, that all change happens within time. Although I
Okay.
don't necessarily take the view that time just is change.
Okay. So, what would you say time is? Would be my question.
Maybe I'd say it's like the dimension along which change is possible.
Okay. Can you help me? Would it be synonymous with saying that time is the relationship between events?
You could hold that view. You could say that you could be a relationalist.
Okay, that's probably going to be where I'm coming from. And so, could you state your position? What would you say yours is, or where you're coming from?
I hold that time is like a thing.
Time is like a tangible
Well,
thing.
that it's like I hold that time is something that is not just grounded in things that change. Like, I don't think time is just the relations between things. I think that it's like an independent object.
It's an independent object. Okay.
Yeah.
So, would it be sufficient to say
But we can
that
work with
you
your
could?
conception because I'm giving a critique of your God, so we can work with the relationalist conception of God. I don't, or with the relationalist conception of time. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, cool. Cool. I appreciate the generosity.
Mhm.
If we're saying that time is a relationship between events, then I think that why would that not be plausible to say that there's a first event?
Yeah, because then what is it in relationship to?
What is
Yeah, what's
okay, I can see that. No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. If
Mhm.
it's a relationship between events, then it would have to be in a relationship with
Yeah.
an event. Okay, I can see that.
Yep. I think it's interesting that you say this because I don't know if this is like an existing argument, but it is something that I thought of, which is that I don't think that if you view time to be a relationship between events, that time could be created. And also
Mhm.
that a theory is true, because in order to have the first moment in time, it would need to stand in relation to other moments. So you would need like a moment before it and then that moment, but then it's no longer the first moment of time. The first moment of time is before it.
Well, ideally, the relationship to the first event would be to something that is not time.
Uh,
And I don't know if that makes any sense. Is
no,
that a logical fallacy?
no, it's going to be like a direct contradiction because you're
Okay.
going to hold that these two things, that these two events stand in like a temporal relation, which means that they're both temporal.
So that means that God would be temporal then.
Yeah, like if you want to say that, like, okay, God exists without time, and then he creates, and then there's like this first moment of time, and the relation between events is between like this timeless state and this temporal state, and then there's like a temporal relation between them. Well, then that would just turn the atemporal state into a state with time, basically. You're putting it in a temporal relation. I don't think that
Right.
you can have like atemporal states and temporal relations.
Can there be a timeless state and at the point of let's say action, so if God is, so in my mind God exists outside of time, so it makes sense that there would be a timeless state and God makes that state have time, which would then create time. Where's the flaw in that one?
Okay, because it comes back to the question of like what does it stand in relation to? If you hold the relationalist view, you would need to specify like where the relation is. Like what
But
does it stand in a
if I
temporal
said,
relation to?
okay, but in saying having a okay, so boom. So if I
Mhm.
said this, if I said that it's the relationship with God, right? That's the relation,
Mhm.
right? Oh yeah, this is actually, so it's the relationship with God that the relation is, right? God the Son that creates time, because I have no problem with saying that God the Son is the creator of time. You'd say, well, what is his relationship to? We'd say the Father. And that would be, and then there's a continuous relationship between the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, because they're kind of, I know I kind of just went off on a rampage there. So let me try to make it more concise. If we view time as relational, the relationship between events, then the beginning of time would be simultaneously related to the Son as God.
Wait,
Which
sorry. So you're saying that the relation is between what?
The relationship, so the beginning of time would need a relationship. At that point, that relationship would be to the Son, which is God, which would make the Son a temporal thing.
So okay, so you would say that God the Son exists simultaneously?
Simultaneously with the creation of time, I would say that.
Okay, sure. Well, how does that change from like the state where God is timeless?
So that would be a different I don't know if I said state. That would be a different person of the Trinity, which is the Father, who has relation with the Son.
Is the Son eternally timeless, or is the Son eternally in time?
Is the Son eternally in time? That's a question I've not come across before, so I'm not going to be able to answer that.
Well,
Is the Son
okay, you
eternally in
can't say
time?
that the Son is eternally in time because then time just eternally exists and then he's not the creator of it. So you
Does
would
the
need to say
Son?
that God the Son goes from being atemporal to being temporal. But
I would
then
say
it's
that.
not clear what actually changes between the timeless state and then the first moment of time, such that there actually would be a relationship there.
Okay, could you say that again, but dumb it down for me, please?
I don't know. Okay, I drew this picture. It's probably
Okay.
gonna be too far away. Okay, so we have state A. Holy shit, dude. Let me get the fucking glare right. I wonder if there's like an optimal position.
I can pretty much make out what you're saying. I can pretty much make it out from here. Yeah. So
Okay,
you got
okay.
state
So
A
wait,
is time.
we have A, we have state A. It goes from state A, where it's timeless, to state B, where you have time. In the middle, you have this, and you have like a temporal relation between A and B.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that stands in a temporal relation must just be in time. But then that makes the timeless state stand in a temporal relationship. So then the timeless state is in time.
Okay, I guess so. But wouldn't we just call that the beginning?
No, because then the timeless state is, well, okay. The problem is that there's just like the direct contradiction of the timeless state being in time.
The timeless state. So, okay, can you define timeless? Is timeless, are you saying that timeless is just a place where time cannot exist? Or is it a place that,
Yeah, minimally defined.
okay,
Yeah, timeless just means like time doesn't exist, or specifically, like a timeless state of reality is going to be a state of reality with no time. What it means to actually be timeless is probably going to be something like, you don't have past, present, and future.
okay. Could I detour slightly to
That's
kind of
okay.
like get where you're coming from a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
So, Dr. Blitz, when he was talking to you, he said something about a world line, right?
Mhm.
And what a world line is it maps a place's time and space. It maps isn't it that a world line maps an object's location in time, like to get all of it?
No, my understanding is that a world line maps specifically the way that it goes through like the four-dimensional space-time. That
Okay.
objects, okay, so picture this. We're in like a four-dimensional space-time. So there's like you in a specific configuration at like different moments. Now picture that the actual you is just like this long drawn out object of like you're sitting, but then earlier you were standing, and there's like these transitory states from like standing to sitting. Kind of the entire object, if I understand it correctly, is the world line. Or maybe like the world line is literally just like a single point in space time. I'm sure that scumbag Dr. Blitz is already typing something in my DMs. No, he wasn't. He doesn't give a fuck about me.
No, I'm so sorry.
That's
My
okay.
wife came home, so I'm gonna have to
That's all
I
good.
do
That's all
appreciate the
good.
conversation.
Yep. Hey, no problem. Well, I appreciate the conversation too. I'm so glad that I get to autisto ramble about philosophy of time. That's what I've been reading up on. Um, whoa. Raw Soul wants to debate me? Okay. Sounds chill. Maybe I will. Okay, well, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. I see Preston in the comments section. I don't know if Dr. Blitz is here, but basically my question is like, okay, in terms of the world line, does the world line refer to just like the point in four-dimensional space-time, except like the entirety of an object's? Is it just like one point that's drawn out, or no? Is it just like a line in four-dimensional space-time? Oh, fuck. Okay, yeah, it is. Huh. World line? You think lines are curves? Well, actually, that might be trivial. Fuck, I might have cooked myself. Ah! Okay. Well,
Oh,
hey, how's it
hello.
going? How old are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah, how old are you?
19.
Yep, and what religion?
I'm Christian, but kind of like a weird subsect of it. So not like you're a traditional Christian, basically.
Okay, what subsect?
I don't really follow any like one domination of Christianity. I prefer to just call myself a follower of Christ, basically.
Wait, what year were you born?
2006.
Okay, sure. Okay, and what makes you think God exists?
Well, I think that the Abrahamic God that you're referring to does exist, but I also think that many other gods have existed, such as the Egyptian gods. And I think that there's not necessarily significant proof for this. No one person can ever be, oh, this is undeniable, unrefutable proof.
Well, wait, but
that-
like even you've set the bar very high. Let's set the bar much lower. Is there like basic evidence for it?
I do think that life in general is proof that God exists. I believe in the Big Bang. I think you said you don't believe in the Big Bang.
No, I do believe in the Big Bang. It's
Okay,
just
you do
that
believe in
the Big Bang does not claim to be the beginning.
I think the Big Bang is the beginning of all life.
Well, that's false too, right? Life didn't exist at the Big Bang.
Right, but I'm saying it's like the very start point of where life started to branch off from it. Like that's when life was like, okay, yeah, now life is gonna happen from this point onward. And I think the Big Bang is when God was like, let there be light.
Okay. I mean that's just like definitely false, right? It was like billions of years between the Big Bang and life.
Right, but I'm saying like that's like when it started. Like that's when it could happen.
Oh, you're saying like the possibility of it
Yeah,
comes
that's a
after the Big
possibility of
Bang?
life. Right. Yes.
Okay. Sure. I guess like why would I think God exists?
Yeah, I think that people. I think that consciousness in like a generalized stance is like, there's a lot of energy in the universe, and that energy has to come from somewhere, right? And I mean, a lot of
Why?
people
Why couldn't it always exist?
well, like, what'd you say? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Why couldn't it always exist?
I think that there had to have been something to create something, like I don't think the Big Bang just could have spontaneously happened out of nowhere. There had to have been some higher being, whether you think that's one god or many gods, that created life.
Why couldn't it have just come about via laws of physics? Like why can't we have an infinite universe or like a universe that goes back infinitely and then it sometimes collapses and then rapidly expands?
I just think that, with the whole laws of science where it's like, matter can't be created or destroyed, I don't think that at a time.
That's not a law of science. It's energy that you're thinking of. Matter can be created and destroyed.
Can it?
Yeah.
How?
So, for example, my understanding is that you can have things like matter, like certain particles will like they'll decay into like radiation and then the particle will go out of existence. And then instead it will just be like the radiation.
All right. Okay. I can take that.
It's energy is the thing that's conserved.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that makes sense then in that case. Yeah. Because like nuclear fission would be technically like a destroying of matter, but it creates energy and that energy stays.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I understand that. So, but yeah, my thing is, I think that there's just a lot of proof of God. There's a lot of intentionality in nature. And I also think that there's just a lot of things that are just too specific and just too intentionally designed and intricate that, it just happened randomly without, any real, hand to guide it.
For example?
Like, I mean, think about the human body. I mean, it just works on its own, right? The brain just does it by itself.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
even with,
except for like all of
animals.
the, except for like the fact that we need to consume food and the fact that we need to like frequently visit the doctor. There's like tons of obvious problems with it. For example, my kidney produces rocks, and then I have to like piss those rocks out, and it's like pissing out like a shard of glass. That's like pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy design choice.
Right.
Same
I
thing
mean,
kind of
sometimes things
applies to
go
like a lot of
wrong,
organs.
Yeah, but I mean, in the long run, they function and they help us and they sustain us. But I mean, things can go wrong. Of course, things can go wrong anywhere. I'm not saying that life is perfect, but I'm saying that it's intricate and it's very detailed and intentional. That's what
Why
I'm
wouldn't it be
trying to say.
perfect?
Well, nothing's perfect. That's what life is. Life is imperfect.
Why would God have like so many design flaws in his design?
Because God didn't make us to be perfect.
So he put the design flaws in intentionally?
Yes.
Okay. I guess at that point it seems like your hypothesis is like totally unfalsifiable. It's compatible with like the human body could look like anything at all, and you would still come to the conclusion that God designed it. Like all these problems could be way, way worse. They could happen like 100% of the time. Like, I don't know, our bodies could be perfect. They could not have these problems. They could be imperfect. They could have way more problems. And then it seems like you could still always say, well, God designed it and he put all those imperfections in. So it's kind of compatible with any possible body that we could have. So it's unfalsifiable.
All right. Yeah, but I think another thing is, I mean, and I don't speak for all Christians or even all Catholics or any Jews like that, but I think a lot of the time when these debates are like, is God real? Can you prove it? No one can prove it. That's the thing. It's a belief, it's a faith, and it's divine, and no human can wrap their head around divinity. And it's a lazy excuse. Trust me, I think it's a lazy excuse as well. But the thing is, when you try to understand things with science that you can't understand, you're always going to be looking for a logical explanation that just doesn't exist,
Why wouldn't God, if God wants people to believe in him, why wouldn't he give more evidence?
The Bible is the evidence, but you can't prove the Bible with itself because that's circular.
Correct,
but
yeah.
That is the Christian.
Why wouldn't he
That's
give
what Christians would say.
Why wouldn't he give like kick-ass, like, I don't know, man. If I was God creating the Bible, I think probably what I would do, I would, I don't know, have you ever like opened up like a physics textbook and then at the back of it there's like just a list of equations? I feel like that's what I'd put in my holy book to demonstrate the truth of it. I'd put all these physics equations or like all these science facts, just a big long list of them that haven't been discovered yet. That would be incredible evidence.
Right, but the thing is, that's why free will exists. God gave us free will to discover him through the text that he left. And I think a lot of people take the Bible as like this one big rule book that, like this is everything. When it's not really necessarily a rule book. I mean, Christians themselves don't follow half of what the Old Testament says. And a lot of what the Bible is, it's more or less just stories of Jesus and all his disciples and of the people in the Bible, trying to live their lives the best they can through Christ, which is what it is.
So then it's not super clear that God even wants me to believe in him if he's not giving me enough evidence. Like, how could I possibly form the belief in God absent like horribly irresponsible practices, like just believing something because I want to? Like, I mean, I could believe that my neighbors are like subhuman because I just choose to, but that would be like psychotic.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, like, does God just want me to, God didn't give me enough evidence to believe in him. Does he just want me to believe in him by wanting to believe in him, or like?
Basically, that's really what it is. God gave us enough proof in his eyes that we should, find our own way to him, whether that is through the Bible, through the church, or just through our own spiritual journey. That's again what free will is. The argument for it is that if he came down and was like, hey guys, I'm God, believe in me, then that would be no point. He doesn't want his creations to do that. He wants his creation to willingly choose him.
Does God value us believing in him or having a relationship in him?
Both.
Okay, no, I understand. So I understand that it's going to be necessary in order to get the relationship. But I mean, which one does God value more?
Which one is God? God values you believing in him.
Okay, so he would like me. He would prefer that I don't know. Would he rather me be like Satan and then I fucking believe in him, but I'm like a horrible person, or would he rather me be like a good person that doesn't believe in him?
He would. That's a question that both answers are wrong. If you're a bad person and you say that you're a Christian and you believe in God, you don't actually, follow his teachings or put them into practice. So you can say you believe in his teachings, but you're not actually living his teachings.
If
You
God
can
wanted
be a
you to
good.
be one, well, wait, so the question of whether or not you accept his teachings is a separate question from whether or not you believe that he exists. You could
Right.
believe that he exists and just reject his teachings and not want a relationship with him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So which one would God prefer, do you think? Do you think God would prefer you be a good person that doesn't believe in him, or like a bad person that does?
I am actually not sure.
Okay. I mean, if God values these things equally, I also think that that's pretty absurd.
I would agree. Yeah, no, I actually don't know how to answer that question. I personally believe that I think he would value kindness and not
Mm,
believing in him over being a bad person
yeah, that would make
and
sense.
believing in him.
Well,
But of
okay.
course,
It
it,
Yeah, sorry. Do you think that us believing in him, he values that? Oh gosh, I actually don't want to get too technical. Never mind.
no, it's
Um,
okay. You can go.
well, so there are some things that we value for like a further purpose. So I might value like an antibiotic, but it's not like I don't value like the antibiotic in itself. I value it for like what it does. I value it because it serves like some further purpose. Um, it it kills bacteria, it cures diseases, basically. Uh,
Right.
and then there are other things where I value them not for anything further. Like I don't have some like additional thing that I use this for. Like for example, my relationship with my mom. I love my mom, and I don't need that to be towards something. That love is not dependent on there being like some goal that it aligns with. That's just kind of like the ending point for that specific chain of value. Um, so does God value us believing in him as uh like an end in itself, like something that has no further thing that it's for, or does God value us believing in him because there's like some further thing that he wants it for?
God would value us believing him because he believes that there is more to life when you believe in him. Basically, there's more. There's also afterlife, which is the only way to get to the good afterlife per se is if you believe in him. So he wants us to find him, to believe in him for that purpose.
Yeah, sure. So he wants it not he doesn't just want us to believe in him as like a stopping point in terms of his like the things that he values. He wants us to believe in him so that, after we believe in him, we'll go out into the world and do good things and like form a relationship with him, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then if he wants these additional things, it seems like he should just tell everyone that he exists, and then we can either choose to do those things or not do those things with our free will.
Well, no, I completely agree, but that's unfortunately just not how this religion works. And that's another thing with
Hmm.
it. It's a complicated thing that relies on blind faith. You don't really have hard, concrete evidence, unfortunately. But I think another thing is a lot of people do good things, and I think maybe in the grand scheme of things, that's enough, right? Again, I'm just some guy. I don't know all the answers. I'm not claiming to know all the
That's
answers.
okay.
I'm just here saying that I do think God exists, and I think that He is real, and I think that He is, good, loving, and He semi-rational, right?
Mhm. Well, hey, do you have unless you have like more evidence, I might move on to the next one.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's really about it. I do have a question.
Yep.
Do you know anything about the Anuki?
How do you spell
Anunnaki.
the Anukai?
Inukai, yeah.
Not really.
Oh, well, I was gonna go into that as well. That how that would be perhaps proof of another thing with the Egyptian gods
Uh,
being real? 'Cause some people
Sure. I
believe
mean,
that the
I
Egyptian
I
gods.
probably wouldn't grant the existence of the Enukai, but sure.
Yeah, some people believe that those are the Egyptian gods, and other people believe that the Egyptian gods are the byproducts of angels and humans. But I was going to go into that point of saying, like, I think, yeah, I pronounced it wrong. Sorry, but that God is real, and so by
Or
that
wait,
definition,
is it the oh sure, the Anunnaki. Okay,
yeah,
that's
Anunnaki. I've
pronounced.
heard it pronounced many different ways.
Okay, sure. Well,
Yeah.
hey, thanks for coming up. Appreciate you. All right, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran, and that you have some sort of a reason to think that God exists. And that will go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going?
What's up, man?
Yeah. How old are you?
28.
Yep. And what religion?
I'm Christian.
Okay. What makes you think God exists?
All right, yeah, so I do have something to say here. Before we do that, a long time ago, you were doing debates. I came in and you turned it on to sub only. I wanted to drop a comment. So I subscribed and you blocked me. So I keep paying you $2 every single month, and I'm okay with that because it's whatever. But I can't cancel my subscription because you have my account blocked, so it's impossible. So
I can I can unblock your
no,
account.
no. That is happening, but I don't care. You can keep the $2. It's fine. You
I-
blocked the account, so it's like
okay,
auto
sure.
charge.
Well, listen,
Okay,
hey,
now-
I mean, if you ever want me to, I'm totally happy to help you out with that.
No, you're good. It was well played, man. It was well played. I was obviously I was okay. So it's like it's $2, it's whatever. All right, on to the conversation.
Sure.
Okay, so do you want like an argument, or do you just want like what are you looking for exactly?
An argument would be cool. I always appreciate one of those. Just some
All
sort of
right.
reason to think that God exists.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I would say like let's start with I think that matter itself can't be eternal.
Why
I think
not?
it doesn't. I think it doesn't make sense. I think that matter itself, well, because it basically violates like what is it in terms of like thermodynamics. So like basically, the universe is always expanding, and there's going to be a point right where it actually collapses. So if the universe is going to collapse, and if time was always, and if the universe was always eternal, and time was always eternal, why hasn't it just collapsed yet? How would that make sense?
Yeah, what if
Like,
it
do
goes
you-
through cycles? What if it goes through cycles of rapidly expanding and then rapidly collapsing and then rapidly expanding more?
But we'll see. Well, that's the thing is that when it collapses, doesn't everything that it collapses within it get destroyed?
It's probably going to be turned into like some sort of state of energy. So I
Do you
guess
see that-
I guess we should probably disambiguate what you mean by matter being eternal. If by matter being eternal, like I think matter is eternal in the sense that there is no like first moment where matter exists and then before that on the timeline there's just no matter. I mean, I think that that's probably the case, but I don't think that matter exists at all points in the timeline. Instead, there's going to be energy in different fields such that there's no matter because the universe is in like a state that prevents the existence of matter because it's like too hot and dense.
Okay. So essentially, so you're just basically saying that the matter it collapses and the matter turns into energy, and the energy can then just it basically collapses and it repeats itself.
Yeah.
And I guess that you hold it the same thing for time. So time just basically would collapse because time, everything would break down under a collapse, right? Including
No,
time.
I don't know that would happen to time. So
Well,
I think time's going to be something that's more fundamental than matter.
do you think that time would exist out? Okay. Well, if the universe collapses, wouldn't like everything under it, including, for example, in a singularity, basically even space time breaks down in that, right?
I wouldn't hold to a singularity. My understanding is that not many physicists hold to that.
That everything breaks down in the singularity, or
No, that there actually was a singularity. I certainly wouldn't hold to that.
Oh, okay, you don't hold to that.
Yeah.
So you just what is your position then in terms of just the universe?
Yeah, I should clarify. So a singularity is specifically like infinite density. I don't hold to a thing with infinite density. What I would hold to is going to be something like, a very hot, very dense state that rapidly expands and then it rapidly collapses into a very hot, very dense state.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Sure, I wasn't really planning on doing a long debate today, so I'd like to come back again in the future if
It's
I can.
okay. All
Like I said,
good.
you have some more people. I just wanted to kind of pop in for a second, and like I said, all right, man, take care, bro.
Yep. Hey, yeah, you as well. Wow, wasn't that dude super chill and unapologetic? He was super chill today. It's weird. It's strange. Really makes you think. All right, let's go to the next guest. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, first of all, red button, really?
Yep.
Uh, we can talk about that, but I have an argument for creation of time in terms of relationism.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
So if there's a if time is the relation between moments,
Yep.
then a first moment wouldn't actually be the first moment in time. Only when the second moment exists, then there will be a time.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Is that you'd have a moment before the first moment.
No, I didn't say what. No, the first moment, like there's a moment and then there's time, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
So
but under the relationalist view, you're basically saying that time is just a relation between different moments.
yeah,
But anything that stands in a temporal relation is itself temporal. So the first moment would be both temporal and atemporal because it's not temporal until the second moment comes into existence. But I
yeah.
mean, like time only exists at the second moment. So you have time before time. You have the first moment before the first moment.
No, it's not. I think you're using moments in two different way in the same sentence.
I don't think so.
Because the first time you're using a moment is is in the traditional way when you say like in time, and then there's the relationist way, which is like between two moments.
I'm not sure what the equivocation is. Like
That
I
if
understand you're
there-
saying it's between I'm equivocating on the term moment.
Yeah.
So I'm equivocating between moments in time
a single
and the
moment
sorts of moments that stand in temporal relations, but I would just assume that the moments that stand in temporal relations are just moments in time too.
under a relationist view, a single moment isn't necessarily in time unless there's something to compare it to.
Okay, well, what is it then? Like, what specifically
The
would a
second
moment be?
moment. The second moment. If the first moment is a moment where nothing except God creating the second moment,
Mhm.
then I don't see an issue.
So how would you define moment?
A state of affair, I guess.
Just like
I
a
don't
state
know.
of affairs? Okay. Sure. So
I haven't thought
I
too much
guess
about it.
let me
I was just thinking
I wish I had the
previously.
picture still up. I guess I can redraw it. Okay.
How dare you not have a picture?
I drew the picture earlier. I'll draw the picture again.
Sorry, I wasn't looking at the screen earlier. I'm
That's
playing
okay,
video
that's
games
okay.
while listening to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to get clear on this. Maybe I'll do it in all caps. Oh, wait, sure. Okay. Okay. So we have moment A and moment B. So moment A, we have no time, and then it changes into moment B, correct?
Yep.
And then in moment B, we have time.
Yep.
And the temporal relation that generates time is the change between this and this.
Yeah, but I think in this case you're using time as you're used to it, not in a relationist sense. You're using it as a change necessitating time.
You disagree?
Not
You
in a
reject
rela-
change necessitates time?
Wait, I think I confused myself there for a bit.
The relationalist typically doesn't want to
No.
reject that. Typically, the
No,
relationalist wants to
I
say
know.
that it's
I
necessary and
confused myself. I'm
sufficient.
sorry. I understand. Yeah, when there's a change, then time occurs.
Hmm. Yep.
Then I don't know. I'm seeing two of those seem compatible for me, but I can't really explain why. Like, I don't see the issue with the like scenario I described.
Okay, wait, did you ask a question?
No, I guess the
Okay.
implied question was like what's necessarily like.
So wait, would you agree that in this scenario that there's a temporal relation between A and B?
Yes.
Okay, and would you agree that everything that stands in a temporal relation is going to be within time?
Wait, I know I have an idea. Instead of like writing time in a second moment, like because the second moment existing, then it creates time for the first moment. So it's kind of like encircling it in a sense, not just like.
So
The
is the
time that-
first moment temporal or is it not temporal?
First moment becomes temporal because God in that moment is creating the second moment.
Okay, but in the first, does time exist in the first moment?
Not until the second moment.
Okay, so time does not. So the first moment is atemporal,
Yeah.
and then it almost feels like it's like retrocausality.
I mean, yeah, kind of. Yeah, because if
So you're saying that the present changes the past?
I mean, yeah, because you need to compare it to like if time is in relation to something else, then yeah, if you compare it if there's nothing to compare it to, when there's something to compare it to, then yeah, then it affects it.
Okay, well, first of all, I think retrocausality is like on face extremely implausible. The idea that something in the present could possibly cause anything to happen in the past is like.
I mean, I don't think it causes it to happen. It like changes its relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charsky, did you have something to weigh in on, or are you just hanging out?
Oh, just one quick thing. I'm building a catio, so I probably can't stay for too long. But I don't know that this actually does require at least a problematic sort of retrocausality, right? Like, I don't think we would want to say that, like, the only retrocausality we need is that facts about the present moment change facts about the past. But I think we already accept that. Like if, I don't know, a match of tennis, right? Before there's a match that comes after it, that match does not have the property of having a match come after it, right? And so, but then once the matches come after it, it becomes true that in the past a match would come after it or something like that.
Yeah,
so it stands in
sure.
that sort of relation. So I don't know that we need that kind of.
Yeah, I was about to like use an example of like two like scores in a match. Like if you play a game, then the first score you get would be the highest. But then say you do another game and you score higher, then that does affect the past. Now it's the lowest score in relation to a future event.
Sure. Okay, so then I guess like maybe a good question would be this. Between A and B, which is the first moment in time?
I think technically time exists when both of them exist. So both of them are the first moment in time, I guess.
You don't want to say
In
that.
time.
They're separate moments.
And also, it seems like the temporal relation is like after is before and after, right? But if they're both the first moment, like that's the second moment coming into existence means that it can be in that relation. But if they're both the first, they can't be in a before and after relation, right?
Yeah, typically we probably want to define change in such a way that it's like an incompatibility, like a logical incompatibility, that when I change from like standing to not standing, or that all changes are going to be expressed as like the thing goes from being this way to being not that way, which obviously you don't want to say that that's the same moment, because then you have contradiction. But
it's kind of hard. I think the language I'm using either isn't equipped to this or I need to bake it more, because it sort of makes sense in my head, but I keep tripping over the like naming of moment.
Sure.
Because
One thing,
like let's use scenarios instead of moment for a second. I think it will help me make my case
Do you think
clearer.
like states of affairs would be easier?
Yeah, but that's a long word. Let's just use scenario.
Scenario is going to be confusing.
Okay.
Maybe states
Oh
of
yeah,
affairs.
I see, Anderson. So state of affair
Yeah.
1 is God creating the second state of affairs, and because both of those states of affair now exist, now there's a relation between both moments, which means there's time. So because there is a relation between time, now there's time. So the first moments would be the first moment will be both of those states of affairs.
Okay. Do you think would you say that the state of affairs where God is creating time, or where he's like creating the second state of affairs, do you think that that state of affairs happens in time, like the first one?
No, technically not. Like not until the second one comes around.
Okay, so then
which would be like, I guess, a Planck moment
there's kind
later.
of like
I don't
an
know.
evil cheap move that I can do, which is that I can ask you, in the state of affairs where God is creating, like the first state of affairs, does God believe time exists at that state of affairs?
Well, let me re-ask the question.
Yeah. In the first state of affairs where God is creating the second state of affairs, does God believe within the first state of affairs that time exists?
No, he knows it doesn't exist until the second moment it gets there.
So then it's true in the first moment that time does not exist.
Yeah, now we are now the only way to resolve that, I guess, is like it's a theory of time, kinda, and like that God like has to change technically.
I think. Well, I actually think that
yeah.
the real way out of this dilemma is to hold to a B theory of time. I think
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
hold
I
to like a
know,
B theory of
but-
time, then you can like trivially say that, well, the first moment of time, it stands in relation to the second moment of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I know.
Because
The
they
B
just
theory
all
kinda
always
solves that.
exist.
Yeah, let's say God is outside of that, but I don't know. I think this either needs more time in the oven. I don't know if I'll think about this much more. I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, just hearing the other guests say, like, I didn't know about a relationist view of time until now, and sounds pretty like it could maybe lead to somewhere.
Okay.
But
Do you have
yeah,
anything else?
unless you want to speak about the red button, and I think it conflicts with your virtue ethics, then no.
I'd be open to an argument about that. Charsky, do you take a stance on the red button or the blue button?
I'm weekly blue button pilled, but
Oh my
base.
god. Well, actually, I think that's great. I think all
You're
of you should push the blue
outnumbered.
button. I'm going to push the red button, though.
okay.
Yeah, you're outnumbered, so don't worry, you're safe. But I think that's not say if like 25 like 49% of the population die, would you be able to look at the decisions of your life and that you chose and what you chose and think that you lived the good life?
Potentially. I don't think that. Okay.
Like I don't see how you can do that without like coping, like no, I didn't cause this. In fact, like, yeah, you did kinda.
I don't know if I'd say that you did cause it.
I think it's explicit. I think red button is explicitly the cause everyone who pressed blue to die button.
So I think okay, it depends on like your epistemic status. I think that if you're like omniscient and you omnisciently know you only need one more button pusher to save all these people, otherwise they're all gonna die. Well then yeah, you have a strong obligation at that point. But then like trivially, right, if that's not gonna happen, then you should just not do that because you value your life. These people are dead anyway.
Yeah, but every person who like that's would be like how people argue about the inadequacy of voting in elections, because like it's everyone's collective vote, like, and it's your duty to vote in order to cause a preferable change, in my opinion.
Sure, but it seems likely to me that everybody who pushes the blue button is just going to die. Insofar as there seems to be, as far as I can see, this is just the vibe that I get, but it seems like most people are red button, especially like upon zero reflection. It seems like especially strong that most people are red button.
Every poll that I've seen, like shows red losing. It's like always constantly like I think 60-40 in favor of blue, which changes, which would probably change in real life since it's like a hypothetical. But then again, the polls I've seen were on Twitter, and I think Twitter would have a lot of red pushers, much more than blue pushers, because it doesn't think 13-year-olds and
that if
I don't know.
I think if you're sincerely religious, the blue button makes even more sense.
I agree with that. That's like for sure true.
And I think that given that a lot of people are religious, I think that you should think that a lot of people are going to push.
Okay, wait, that is an interesting argument. Sure.
I've also seen analogies, and usually it is like self-referential because it takes into consideration what you think other people will perceive the question as. So other analogies don't necessarily always work, but I think, but I still like to view it this way. Say you're in like a river, a dry river base, next to a dam made of life supports. If enough people take out of the dam, then the river will collapse and flood everyone in the river unless they've taken a life support out of the dam. That's kind of taking the life support is the red button, in my opinion. It was just like a dick move to me.
Do
you see that?
I think that a lot goes into like the epistemic stat. I think, okay, I'd probably hinge a lot on the epistemic status, because the one and only scenario where it seems like you do wrong. Okay, wait. So in this scenario, do you all vote simultaneously? Is there?
What do you mean?
I think probably the specifics change it. If you're the last person to vote, for example, I don't think that there's anything wrong with pushing the red button insofar as it's like extraordinarily unlikely that they haven't either cleared the bar. But maybe then like a regress argument applies there, where at that point, yeah.
In this scenario, it's also the case that you don't know how many more life supports it will be needed to collapse the dam. Like how many more do you need to take? Like in that case, you could think, oh, there's only one, and then you'd be like, oh shit, I need to. I wouldn't blame you for going like, oh shit, I need to go get a life support. But it's roughly supposed to be 50%. I've also seen like other people change the odds from 50% to like 60% or 70%. If it's 70%, I think it's very well. I think you'd be in the right for getting the red, for clicking the red button, because getting 70% of people to agree on anything sounds way more unlikely. Whereas 50% agreeing on something, where there are two options, is just like trivially right. So now whether it's 50% agreeing on red or blue, and I think choosing everyone is more likely, and it shows in polls. But if the odds are like in favor of red, that like you need 70% for blue, then you'd be justified. 60% that'd be iffy, and red,
something that's interesting is that it seems like either button push is like I don't know. Either of them also seem, this is strange, but both options feel like trivially very universalizable under like the Kantian universalizability criteria.
Those were certainly words which I don't think I understood.
You don't think what?
I don't think I understood those words.
Oh, do you know Kant and his like ethical theory?
Oh, yeah, I've heard the name. I don't think I've gotten into that one yet.
Sure. So Kant basically, Kant thinks that all of your reasons are going to come from basically your goals, that all the reasons you have to do for any action comes from like the things that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I have listened to you long enough to have heard about that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
his criteria is basically like, okay, could everybody consistently take this action? If everybody was consistently taking this action, would you still be able to take the action and achieve the goal by taking the action? And it
If
seems like
the
either
goal-
case, like, yeah, easily.
If the goal is to live the good life, which in that case is one where you don't feel guilty about killing people,
I don't think
then
pressing the red button, like, I wouldn't say that I'm the one who's killing those people.
in the scenario of the dam, what do you
Wait,
think?
sure. So in the scenario of the dam, wait, what's the scenario there?
That whenever the scenario of the dam is that everyone is in a dry river,
Yeah.
and the dam is made out of life supports. If you take the life support out of the dam, like if 50% people take life supports, then the dam collapses.
Oh.
And you have no idea of knowing how many people have taken the life supports.
Oh, sure. Well, then you could justify like not taking the like the life preservers. You could justify not doing that based on like an action versus inaction distinction.
Yeah.
So then I could say that the right thing to do in that scenario would be to not take it. But also that doesn't seem to be analogous because everybody could push the red button.
Yeah,
in
and
the
everyone
red
can take
button,
a life
blue button
support.
scenario, but
The
it doesn't
life,
seem like everybody could push the dam.
No, every single person can take one life preservers. That's the word.
Oh, well, then that just feels obvious
No.
that everybody should take a life. I think it makes total sense
No.
that everybody should just go and take a life preserver.
Yeah, but that's not gonna happen because not everyone's gonna be like, okay, let's collapse the dam.
Oh, well, maybe you should be the change you want to see in the world and go and take a life preserver.
No, because what if people don't want to be the change they see in the world? And it's also like it's enforcing a decisions upon others. Like, oh, well, you're not gonna take it. Well, you're gonna die because I'm gonna take it. Like,
oh, well, I mean, I would just assume that people would act rationally. I mean, there's like enough life preservers for all of us. Just take your life preserver.
Well, do you not think it will also be like, actually, we're all safe right now. If no one takes, if 50% of people don't take it, the majority of us don't take it, then no one is gonna die.
Well, I mean, that may be the case, but then, if I don't take a life preserver, it's a prisoner's dilemma, of course. If I don't take a life preserver and everybody else does, well, then I'm fucked. So, I mean, the safe option is the one where I take a life preserver and then everybody else figures that that's the safe option. So then everyone does that.
But it's a prisoner dilemma, but in the way that if both the prisoners don't confess, then there's just no punishment.
Well,
and
I mean,
in that case, it's just obviously true that you should not confess.
I don't think I agree with that. So, okay.
What do you think? What do you think you should do in the prisoner's dilemma?
I generally, in terms like a game theoretic strategy, my understanding is that the optimal game theoretic strategy is that you start off not confessing, and then if the other person starts confessing, then you should start confessing too.
Yep. So the optimal solution is to not confess, because it's only one round, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's like literally zero punishment for not confessing, like if you don't confess and he doesn't confess, neither of you get a zero sentence. Like
Are you positing knowledge of what the other person's gonna do?
No.
Oh.
I mean, you would assume you would assume they are also rational and would just choose the nobody gets sentenced option.
Well, but then the problem is that if they're trying to optimize their money and they know that that's what I'm going to choose because that's like the rational thing
No,
to choose, it
no,
becomes
I'm
like
not using the money method. I'm talking about like the one where it's like if you confess, if you tell what happened,
yeah, but in the prisoner's dilemma, the other person, if
it's
I
accused, not
don't,
confess. That's the word.
yeah,
Accused.
if I don't confess, then the other person has a reason to confess because then they come out on top. That's
No,
like
you
the
don't.
best possible
You don't
outcome
know
is
what
the one where
you're in separate rooms in the prisoner's dilemma.
yes, but
You don't know.
yes, exactly. But okay, it kind of seems like you both want to like posit that you have like specific knowledge of what the other people want to do within your analysis of the prisoner's dilemma, but then
Yeah,
not within the other
you
one.
also did that because you say you like appeal to. Well, I just gonna assume people will be rational and take the life
Okay.
or the life
Well,
preservers.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's like the safe option. I don't know. It's the option where
Yeah,
there's no risk to
and
you, so I don't know why we wouldn't just all do the thing where there's no risk to us.
yeah, but in like imagine the prisoner's dilemma, but like instead of if both of you don't say anything, then neither of you go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
You're already not at risk.
But there is no risk-free option in the prisoner's dilemma, so it's not analogous.
No, I know it's not analogous. I'm saying let's change the prisoner's dilemma and say instead like if you don't say anything, if you don't accuse, then you're scot-free.
Okay.
If both of you don't accuse, because in the original prisoner's dilemma, you both get a
Wait,
lesser sentence.
I'm sorry. Can you give a prisoner's dilemma where there's like a totally risk-free option?
No.
Oh, well then it's not going to be analogous because there's a totally risk-free option in the blue button, red button.
Again.
Let me say it again.
I said I'm thinking for a second.
Sure.
No, then I think the prisoner's dilemma is not really analogous, but because at the same time there's also nobody dies option, and I think, and as you say, and I think as I said before, that picking the nobody, like I would not be able to say I lived a good life if I survived in a world where the red pushers won. Like if people who pick the blue button win and I pressed red, I would be able to say I lived a good life, I guess, like in retrospect. But like if red won, I'd be devastated.
Yeah. Well, okay, wait. So I think it would be quite sad if red won,
Should
but
I
there's a
not blame
substantial number
myself
of blue
if I contributed?
pushers. Then that would be quite sad.
Yeah.
But okay, I think the only situation where I'd feel like remorse is if there was like literally one push away from saving them. Then at that point I would feel remorse for not doing that.
I know, but I think now you're just doing election nihilism again.
Doing
Which
what?
is like election nihilism. We're like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, and it's literally the last vote that counts.
I wonder if those things are analogous. So you want to draw an analogy between because sure. So I'd feel remorse in the scenario where I'm like the one person that doesn't. Maybe those things are analogous. So sure. Then that would be like a good reason to push the blue button. Although I don't think I would feel any sort of remorse if like my party wins like 100% and then I like don't vote.
Okay, but that's not gonna happen. Let's be for real.
Okay.
Not 100% of people are gonna push the red button, as you've already seen.
Okay.
Have you seen the polls already?
No, I have. But unfortunately, it just is the risk-free option.
See, I'll be dead, Ian.
Mm.
I'll be dead.
I know,
How will you do this to me?
Okay. Well, I'm like an
Okay,
hour over, so I gotta go. Matthew, thanks so much for the super chat. Metaphysical time makes me upset. Matthew, you're gonna need to cry about it. There's going to be way more metaphysical time coming on up. All right. Let's... Wait, do we have anything else? Whoa, Biomechanic, Shasti McNasty, Poopman Jones, Seabar, thank you so much for the sent gifts. If you want to get started with philosophy, but you don't really know where to start, you should join the Discord. We're reading Michael Humer's Knowledge, Reality, and Value. We're reading chapter, 16? About the obligation of charity. Molly, do we have anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to end stream. Okay. See you all later.